So I didn't sing it.
All right, it's live. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Around the 412. We are part of AllSteelers.com and proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, and more. You can follow Crowworthy at Crowworthy on Twitter and visit us at crowworthy.com. And you can also check out our Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcasts like this, blogs, and more. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty. What's going on, man?
That was good. I told you I changed the intro up, so I was hoping we'd get a clean run the first time, and we did.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't pull my like dyslexic self sometimes.
1 for 1. Batting 1,000. Unlike well, I mean, that's a little bit unrealistic.
Unlike the rest of the team.
We'll talk about them a little bit. Honestly, not too much to talk about in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we're going to take a look maybe into their future a little bit when it comes to talking about the team. Talk a little bit about the NHL as well, as we are down to just 3 teams remaining vying for the Stanley Cup. We will get into that a little bit later. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Manscaped. So support for Around the 412 is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. They're constantly getting better. They are improving just like us. Their products keep getting better and better. So honestly, I have them. Tyler has all the stuff. Our friend Sarge has all the stuff. He texted me about it today, actually. He just recently got his. I know Stubbs has them. These guys have been telling me about their experiences. I know firsthand what my experience has been like. This thing is unlike anything else. It's awesome. They spent 18 months perfecting this lawnmower 3.0 that is the newest in its line. The third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. It's premium. The battery lasts up to 90 minutes off its charging stand. Its charging stand is awesome. It's got USB. It's waterproof, so you can use this thing in the shower. 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. It's got an LED light to illuminate your grooming area. I mean, if you're listening to me speak right now, I think you need to get on the action just like we have. And you can do so by heading to manscaped.com. Use code 412 at checkout. That will get you 20% off plus free shipping. Your balls will thank you, and you can thank us. Again, that's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code 412 at checkout.
I recently bought the cologne and the body wash, so I'm excited to see how those go.
Yeah, me too. I haven't gotten them yet, but I've ordered them and I am waiting for them to come in. So I'm super excited about those as well. If it's anything like the deodorant and the toner, it's going to be awesome because I really enjoy the scent of those. Which I've said in the past. I said even like beforehand, I remember I was like, listen, the Lawnmower 3.0 is great, but it's really the toner and the deodorant that like pulled me in. So
yeah, it was definitely a new experience for sure. And all of you should experience it too.
Yeah. So again, 412 at checkout gets you 20% off plus free shipping. So yeah, well, first things first, we don't have to talk about the Pirates. We won't start off, all gloom and doom. We can talk about how the MLB has set its mind and the plans are in place for a neutral site playoff with the NL taking place in Houston and Texas, the AL taking place in San Diego and the home of the Los Angeles Dodgers. We were talking about this a little bit in the past. It was an idea that was thrown around. Now it's going to happen. That's what they're going to roll with. The World Series will take place in Texas New Stadium, which is a stadium I would love to go to someday, by the way. Completely off topic, but it looks awesome. Brand new. This is a good idea, obviously. With everything that's going on right now, these teams, we've seen these other leagues choose to go to a bubble format, and this is their interpretation of that, not exactly a bubble, but I mean it's pretty close to it. They're deciding on these 4 locations, 2 and 2 for the NL and 2 for the AL. I mean, this is probably the best thing that they could do. I'm fully on board with them doing it. Obviously, the Pirates won't be there anyway, so but it is an expanded playoff. I'm excited to see teams like the Padres take place in this thing. That's probably who I'm going to be rooting for. Um, but yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I've seen this coming for a long time, and it's just good to know that they actually have the plan in place now.
Well, I think, especially after the breakout in the beginning of the season with the Marlins and the Cardinals, I think it's just the smartest thing to do for the MLB was to cut it down to just a few cities. And even though it's not like a bubble like the NHL and NBA have, it's like you said, it's close to that, and it's as good as you're going to get with baseball. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. And then did they say with the World Series, is it just going to be in one of them? Or are they going to go back and
Yeah, that's
forth?
what I was talking about. It's just going to be in Texas.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean that's similar to what the NHL did, where the championship will be in one of the hubs. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's a smart idea.
Yeah, and they were talking today, I saw as well, Rob Manfred coming out and saying that the expanded playoffs will probably be past, 2020. That will probably be a thing that they just continue on with. I haven't seen anything about the DH because I know a couple people have asked us about that. And I still, as of right now, it's just the NL adopting it for this season, and that wouldn't go past it. So if everything stayed the same right now, we would be back to seeing pitchers hitting the National League in 2021, and that would be, I'm I've said before I could care less, but I think it's weird to like for a shortened season and then the postseason have these guys have a DH in the NL and then all of a sudden take it back away. Like so now you're talking about pitchers who typically don't hit anyway. Now for a whole season they didn't, and now they just are going to again.
Yeah, I mean for a few years now, we've said that it's inevitable that the NL is going to get the designated hitting spot. So if they already have it for the shortened season, whether it was going to be that way with the regular season, or not, why would take it away? You've seen that it works fine. And I'm sure the players are all right with it. I haven't heard any players speak out about being negative about it. So if you're eventually probably going to move that way either way, why not just make it permanent now? Because I know it'll probably make a lot of traditionalist fans upset, but that's just the way the game's going. I mean, no one wants to see a pitcher bat. Let's be real. If they get a hit, that's amazing. But 9 times out of 10, they probably don't. Odds are probably even lower than that. And let's be real, offense sells the game. So having that extra batter spot, and traditionally the DH is probably going to be a power hitter that doesn't play defense well, aka Josh Bell. So I mean, it's just going to excel the offense in the sport. So I think the NL should just keep it.
I think you kind of alluded to the last point that I wanted to make about it, about pitchers hitting, is it's incredibly exciting when they do get a hit. Like no matter what the score is, no matter what the situation is, like people get amped up when a pitcher gets a hit. But that just shows to how rare that happens. And yeah, and it takes a little bit of strategy away from the managers as well. And I know people talk about that, like that's why they prefer NL baseball.
I think it takes a lot of strategy away.
Yeah,
that's when I compare the two leagues. Managing the AL is so easy because you don't have to like worry about who's batting next, double switching, anything like that. You can just bring in pitchers when you want.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I get that makes a lot of sense. And then this way, we're talking about like evening the playing field a little bit. I think that there's a cool dynamic to one league having it and one not, especially when we get into like the World Series where they're going back and forth, from having the DH to not having the DH, depending on whose field they're playing on that night. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm fine with that dynamic. I'd be fine if they both had the DH. I would be fine if they both didn't have the DH. It's definitely trending towards them both having the DH. I fully expect that will be the thing. I just wanted to point out that as of right now, it still isn't, but it looks like the expanded playoffs could continue, which is another thing that people are probably going to complain about because like the MLB playoffs, hardest ones to get into. A lot of these other leagues, you're talking about pretty much half the league making the playoffs. That wasn't the case in the MLB, and now it very well could be.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm one of the ones that would probably complain if the expanded playoffs went for PAPS this year. And the only reason is that it may not affect next year, but if they keep going with it and make it a permanent thing, I feel like eventually you might get a team that is like 80 and 82 or something like that, that sneaks into the playoffs, gets hot at the right time, and wins the World Series, which, I mean, that's great for that team. But in my opinion, the MLB playoffs do the best job of showing who is the best team throughout not just the playoffs, but the entire season, because of how hard it is to get into it. Because you have 162 games. It's a grueling schedule they have to go through. And it really shows who's the best team throughout the entire year. Because like we've seen in other sports, teams get hot. And a team could do that in baseball too. But I feel like since the teams in the playoffs are a smaller amount, it at least gives you a better idea of who was the best team in the year.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if when they say expanded playoffs continuing, if that means every year would be 8 from each side like it's going to be this year. I would presume that that would be the case. And yeah, then you're talking about that's pretty much the same that we have in every. I mean, the NFL does 6, but the NHL 8 and the NBA 8 as well. And that's when you have those teams that are under 500 squeak in. And then yeah, who knows from there? We saw Portland make a nice little run in the NBA. And there was a lot of people that were like, if they stay healthy, and Damian Lillard got hurt in that series, obviously, maybe they could upset the Lakers. I never saw that happening. Can't believe we're talking about the NBA on here right now anyway, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that Portland went into the bubble under 500 and then they got hot at the right time. But yeah, it's again, that's up for debate. We'll see if it even comes to fruition. My guess would be, yeah, we're gonna. If I'm a betting man, then I would bet that the NL adopts the DH full time, and we do see the expanded playoffs because it's all about money, and that brings in more revenue. You're talking about more playoff games, more revenue for the teams that are in the playoffs. Bringing it like selling tickets. Obviously, it's kind of wild to talk about fans being at games with what's going on right now, but that's going to be a thing obviously in the future, and everything. There's just going to be more money involved for the league and for these teams if we have expanded playoffs, and that's what it comes down to. It's all about the dollar bills.
Yeah, and the playoffs with the expansion is going to be like the NHL before they added Vegas, because they had 16 teams with get in with a 30-team league. That's where you're going to have a baseball. So people better get used to having over half the league get into the playoffs.
The Pittsburgh Pirates, they're coming.
See, and that's the thing. The Pirates would have a better shot of getting in the playoffs, but I still don't know if I'm a fan of it, even though they have a better shot. But
why not like the NFL? With 6 from each side. What about doing that? I mean, you'd be talking about there's only 3 divisions, obviously, from each side in baseball. So, but 3 wild cards maybe, and then you have nobody like get a bye. It's just 1 versus 6, 2 versus 5, and 3 versus 4. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense too. I mean, honestly, if I had to pick, I would probably pick to keep the playoffs the same amount, not this year, but years prior, have it 5 from each side. And then the wild card, instead of making it 1 game, make it a 3-game series. Because, I mean, that's what Pirates fans clamored for years, because it sucks whenever I will argue till I'm dead that the Pirates were the best team in 2015. They would have beaten anybody in the playoffs. However, they just ran into the best pitcher on one night. Like if they play the Cubs in a 3-game series, I would bet everything that the Pirates win that series. But it's just happened to back-to-back years in 2014 and 2015. You run into like arguably the best pitcher in baseball both years. I mean, Arrieta won the Cy Young in 2015. Madison Bumgarner won the World Series MVP in 2014. So it's just very unfortunate. And I know I'm just a salty Pirates fan, but I feel like a lot of people would like it being a 3-game series, because I feel like that gives you a better picture of a better team. Like we said, like baseball gives you the best picture of who's the best team for the winning. So I just think that would be the best case scenario.
I think so you mentioned a little bit earlier about how watered down it would be. You'd have those sub 500 teams in the playoffs if you did 8 on each side, and you play 162 games for those teams to be under 500 but still make the playoffs. I think that's why. I mean, it's not like the exact same, but that idea, that concept of playing 162 games and it coming down to 1 game wild card for a team that won, we've seen it 98 games with the Pirates in 2015. I do think that it should be a 3-game series, and that's not because of the Pirates. I would argue that regardless of if they were the team there or not. And it's also, I mean, just to get back to how unfortunate the Pirates have been, they were the top wild card in each 3 of the years that they were in that wild card game. And prior to 2013, there was only one wild card spot. There wasn't even a wild card game. So that got introduced. And then the Pirates were like put in that position where they had to play a game just to get in to play the number one team. So, yeah, I mean, we've been dealing with our whole lives, but how unfortunate it is to be a Pirate fan. Just so many things that have gone against them.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of made this, and this has nothing to do with Pirates, by the way, but you talking about how it'd be watered down with like you play that many games and you'd have a losing team get in. It's kind of to relate it to college football. It's why I'm against expanding the college football playoffs, at least right now, because if you expand it to 8 teams, I feel like you're letting teams in that shouldn't be in contention for the national championship, which is it's just like what I would think could happen if you keep the expanded playoffs in the MLB. Because like last year, say for example, if you put 8 teams into the college football playoff, you would have a 3-loss Florida team getting into the playoff. Which, if I mean, right now, if you have 2 losses, you're not getting in. If you have 3, there's no shot you should be in. So I just don't see how they should keep the expansion in baseball just for those reasons. Like you're gonna eventually, it might not happen the first few years, but eventually there will probably be a team that gets in that probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah. But again, I just feel like ultimately it's going to come down to money, and there's going to be a lot more money involved if they keep the expanded playoffs. So I think that's probably the way that we're heading, and hopefully we don't have, a situation like that. I mean, for example, the Pirates, not the year that they won over, wasn't there a year recently where they won 78 or 79? They were like right there. I'm pretty sure that they would be in the top 8 of the NL that year.
Yeah, I think that was like 2017 or 2026. It was 2016 or 17.
No, 16 was terrible. It had to be 17.
Okay. Because, it was 17 because 18, we actually had a winning season.
Yeah, okay.
And no one brings that up.
No, yeah, I know. It's funny. But because we even like started to tune out at the end of the year. It just, they weren't really playing for anything other than to be over 500. And hey, congrats, they did it. But I think we were all just pretty upset about how the Chris Archer trade went down, the dividends that were paid for the rest of that season.
Yeah, that's true. That's because they had to go on an 11-game winning streak. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't have made that trade.
Well, speaking of streaks, they're now on a 7-game losing streak after they went to Kansas City, kind of like in a 4-way tie almost, or just 1 game separating teams from potentially having that number 1 pick. And I don't know, have you seen anything? Like the MLB still hasn't decided that the team with the worst record is automatically getting the number 1.
Nope, they haven't decided anything. It's up to Manfred ultimately. So, I mean, I'm hoping that they'll just say, like, wherever you finish, that's the pick you're getting, like a normal year. But he's got the power to say, no, we're either going off last year's results, which would make no sense, or he could do like a lottery, which I would also not like, because I feel like as a Pirates fan, I would ultimately be disappointed because we wouldn't win the lottery. But yeah, I mean, they have not said anything as to what the determination is going to be.
Right. Okay. Well, the best thing for them until they do know is just keep losing. So.
Yeah, honestly, like they're on a 7-game winning streak, but I can't say I'm upset. Like, or 7-game losing streak, I should say. They're definitely not on a 7-game winning streak. I mean, at this point, and really, we've said it for this whole season, I really don't care how many games they win. I don't think they should win, to be honest. But I care about individual performance, like our friend Jeff, like seeing Ke'Bryan Hayes. I mean, last night we saw Blake Cederling come up. So I care about seeing individual guys and how they can do more so than the overall team, because I know the overall team is not good. So I have no expectations for that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just more about guys that you feel like are part of the future. It's kind of been disappointing with Bryan Reynolds' season, but at the same time, I'm not going back to like this essentially being like a lost season. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in guys' numbers either. I feel like, I even felt like the hitters would take a lot more time to come back, and a lot of them might not look like themselves at all this season. And I kind of feel like that's where I'm at with Bryan Reynolds. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in the season that he's having. But yeah, like Ke'Bryan Hayes, who you expect to be a big part of the future, doing what he's done. That's huge, and that's something to look forward to and build off of, and give us hope for the future. Blake Cedarland coming up, he's a guy that people are clamoring for, kind of jumped onto the scene in spring training, and we were hoping would make the roster right away. I think that he actually dealt with COVID at the beginning of the season, and he was working his way back from that. Jeff's having a really nice year, which is cool to see. So at this point for me, I'm just waiting to see if Jared comes up this year, and that would be the only thing that I'm looking for additionally, because the team results don't matter whatsoever to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared being up with our relationship with him, that would be awesome to see. But since we're talking, he's an outfielder, it just popped into my head. What do you think the future is for Gregory Polanco on this team? Do you think that he could be moved?
Because Ben Sherrington actually just recently talked about him, brought up that he's still relatively young, and overall.
So just to pause you right there. What is young to him? Because I don't know what young is. I mean, relatively young based off of maybe the timeline whenever Pirates prospects are being brought up. Because when I brought up at 25, sure, 28 and 29 is still young. But, I mean, you've got guys being brought up at 20 and 21 now. So, I mean, I guess he's young technically. But really, once guys hit that close to 30 age mark, that's whenever they're not considered young anymore in sports.
Yeah, I mean, this guy just turned 29. So, actually 2 days ago. So happy belated, Gregory. But yeah, I don't consider Gregory Polanco young. I do still think that he's a decent MLB player. I don't think he's a complete bust like people have mentioned. It's a shame that he hasn't lived up to the hype that he built for himself. I want to bring that up, by the way. It's not like this guy came in from the Dominican with crazy expectations. We signed him as a pitcher. So he built up his own hype here. In the minors and came up, and we had high expectations for it. We thought we'd have our outfield set for a very long time when we went to the playoffs those 3 years, or actually, well, he came up the second year of the playoffs, but when we had those multiple years in a row where we made it to the playoffs, we just kind of expected that to continue with the exact same outfield. And we thought that was just the outfield of the future, and still went that way for a very long time. That obviously wasn't the case. And it's funny that he's the last one remaining, but yeah, he's just been riddled by injuries and underperformance a lot due to those injuries. There's been a lot of turnover though internally, not necessarily like Clint Hurdle, but he's had multiple hitting coaches and other people there. I mean, it's just been, it hasn't been exactly as we expected Gregory Polanco's career to go, and it wouldn't surprise me if they moved him. It just really sucks that it's at the point where I have no idea what his value is to a team. I would think that he would probably have, say the NL for some reason were to go back to not having a DH, he would obviously have more value on an American League team. But if the DH stays, he can trade him anywhere. I think he has more value as a DH. I do think that he's a much better hitter than what we've seen this year, and I think that the underlying numbers, such as his hard hit rate and stuff, would show that. He's just been very unlucky to go along with not being all that great this year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for his whole career, we've seen flashes of being a great player, but at the same time, we've seen so much inconsistency with him. And he's been on the team. This is his 7th season with the Pirates. I mean, it's not a guy where we can just keep saying, oh, well, he's still working on it, he's still got to progress. I mean, you're 7 seasons into the MLB. You should be at where you are as a player. They shouldn't need to progress much more. So I mean, it is just unlucky with the injuries he's had, and like you said, the advanced stats saying he's hitting the ball hard. He's just either not hitting it in the right spots or not raising it enough. It's just been a frustrating career for Gregory Polanco, and I mean, it's been disappointing as a Pirates fan to watch him because he was one of the bright players to watch whenever he was young on the team. Funny, I said young. But the past few years, it's been tough, especially with his injury. More recently, he shouldn't slide anywhere on the bases. But I don't know. I feel like you're right. He does have more value on an AL team if the NL does not keep the designated hitter, because I mean, we've seen for years his defense at times can be very scary for fans to watch.
But again, it looks so awkward. But it when you look at the numbers, it's not that bad. It just looks so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's one that I think there's a good chance he's gone, and even if he doesn't hold much value, you've got guys behind him like guys you want to bring up that could play over him. And even if you're going to be bad, I mean, you might as well have these younger guys in the system starting to come up, and he's just taking a spot away from those guys. And if we're not competing, what's he here for?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many other outfielders are kind of on the cusp of the majors, but we just brought up Jarrett. You know, if you're looking for playing time for a guy like that to see what he has, and then you obviously have Brian Reynolds. You're talking about one spot, and I don't know if that's Gregory Polanco in the future. And you know, talking about the future, I think that that's a good segue. How many guys on this team right now do you think are going to be actively shopped this offseason?
Yeesh.
Well, not.
I mean,
okay. So looking at the roster right now, we know Kella's going to be gone, but obviously he won't be traded. He's a free agent. So
yeah, I don't know why they didn't move him at this deadline, and I don't think it mattered what you take what your best offer was and you take him because he's walking. So why even not, like, even if it was just a bag of balls, just trade him. It's more than you're going to get by him walking. I think that Josh Bell's going to be shopped a lot. I mean, we've brought it up on the show. He doesn't have much value at this deadline. I mean, not a lot of people do. Even some other good players on other teams, they don't have as much value as you thought they would, just because this season is so fluky. But I think that he will be shopped. Polanco, I think, will be shopped. I mean, I think you could see Chris Archer trying to get something out of him, just because. I mean, sure, he'd be one of your better pitchers.
What is his contract status?
I'm not entirely sure,
because I'm not even sure if he's. Okay, yeah, free agent 2022.
Okay, then yeah, I would say they'd probably shop him, or at least listen, see what they could get for him.
But they have he has an $11 million option, but it's only a $250,000 buyout.
So you think they might just buy him out?
That would be my guess. I mean, if you pick up that option just to trade him, I don't know that you're getting like 11 million. I don't know that anybody's going to want to trade for him costing $11 million.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I don't know if it's worth what you'll get back in the trade to do that, to take that chance to pick up that option.
Yeah, you're right. I wasn't even like thinking about contracts when it comes to this. Adam Frazier, I'd probably look at moving him. If there's any value there, just move him, I guess.
I think that there's some teams that will covet Adam Frazier, and I don't think he has a role on this team when you look at what the future of our infield is, and even our outfield, because you know he can play a little bit of outfield. It's not great, obviously, but I don't think he's in the team's long-term plans at this point. I could see him definitely being moved. I would have brought up Josh Bell as well. I think Joe Musgrove is another one, to be honest. They were close on a deal with him, reportedly going to the Blue Jays. And it kind of fell apart. No idea what would have been coming back in that trade, but I would look at him or Trevor Williams. And Trevor Williams,
I was just going to bring him up.
Trevor Williams is another one I feel like teams might want to buy low on. He is having a terrible year, and to be honest with you, I've never been that high on Trevor. I love him as a person, you know, great guy, but I think that he's at best like a number 4 or 5 starter for your team, and teams will, you know, they'll covet that. He can go somewhere and get innings for sure. You just wonder though, would that be a team that's really a competitor? Like, is he in a playoff team's rotation? I'm not sure that answer is yes. But I think that there will be a team that would show interest in buying low on him. You know, obviously a former first-round pick. He has had success in the past. So I think there'd be a team that would give something up to get him. And I think that I'm not sure that they would move Joe Musgrove and Trevor Williams, but I think one of them will be.
One guy I hope they don't move, and I'm just looking at Pirates players right now. Chad Kuhl.
Yeah,
I hope they don't move him. He's looked really good at times this season, especially after coming off Tommy John surgery. And if you're going to keep one pitcher that has some value to him, I'd like to keep him. And I mean, they also have Tyon next year too, which I don't think they'll move Tyon. I think they'll stick with him.
No, yeah, you're looking at Keller, obviously, Tyon coming back, and probably I would say that two of those three will still be here. I think that you're only looking at moving one of them, and I would say Chad Cole's probably a guy they keep anyway, just because even if his long-term future here isn't as a starter, I think he could be really good out of the bullpen, and I think that they will like covet that as well, knowing that he could do either one. They seem to really like Joe Musgrove. I mean, they marketed him a whole hell of a lot coming into this 2020 season. I would probably say Williams would be the one that they would most like to move, but I think Musgrove might have more value, so that's what it's going to come down to. But I honestly, yeah, I think that Josh Bell is honestly like the number one trade candidate on this team. And I think that it was a good thing that they didn't pull the trigger on anything at the deadline, because I think that, just people are going to be trying to buy low on him, don't accept crap just to trade him, wait till the offseason when teams are trying to figure out their plans going forward and, let him be part of somebody else's future. Because, I mean, we've had conversations on here. I've never been incredibly high on Josh Bell. Obviously, he put up a great season last year, and I say season with a little bit of hesitancy because it was just, a short stretch of a couple months that made his whole season look great when you looked at his numbers overall. But the defense isn't there. He's too inconsistent. I at times he just looks so uncomfortable with the plate. I mean, when he's locked in, he is one of the better power hitters in baseball, but that's not all the time. And he's just too inconsistent for me. I've never been a huge fan. I think that his best, what am I going to say here? What am I looking for? The best thing for the Pirates would be to use him as a trade chip, as opposed to trying to make him part of the future. And I know I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people want to have him kind of be like the Jose Abreu of the White Sox, like he was around even while they were rebuilding, and now he's part of them while being good. I don't think that Josh Bell's anywhere near Jose Abreu.
I agree. I don't see a point in keeping him around. If he's not going to do well for the team, and even if he makes it through a rebuild, odds are there's probably someone that's going to be performing better than him if you get back to that contention level. So I agree. I think he's the top priority. What about a guy like Steven Brault? Do you think they keep him around? Do you think they have any idea of shopping him?
That's another one that you would look at and probably like, I think that they would like to keep around. Obviously, if somebody makes you an offer on him, on a guy like that, though, I mean, it's too good to pass up. I have no issue if he's not part of the future. He's not, I mean, he's okay. He is what he is. But I think that the best thing about him is he brings that versatility to both start or be part of the bullpen, be kind of like a long man. He can be, an opener. He can be like the second guy in after the opener and go 4 or 5 innings. So I think he brings a lot of versatility to the pitching staff. And I think that they would covet that. I'm not, once again, as a guy that I don't think is like, he's obviously not some star player or anything like that. I don't know if we really have any of those at this point. And yeah, I don't know what his trade value is. Like, I think the team would covet a guy that can be like that swing man and pitch in multiple roles like he is able to. And yeah, I don't know. That's one I didn't even think of.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the roster to get an idea of, okay, give me names in my head because
the ones I thought of were Musgrove, Williams, Bell. Honestly, what about Brian Reynolds? Because I don't want them to trade him, but I've seen that actually talked about.
I think that depends on the decision to trade Brian Reynolds. Probably depends on how long you think you're going to be rebuilding. If you think you're going to be rebuilding past, let's say, 3 years, like if you're not going to compete within 3 years, then sure, go see what you can get, or keep him another year, see if he has better stats, and then try to chop him then. But if you plan on competing within the next 2 or 3 years, I feel like Brian Reynolds is going to be on your team with that, because I don't think he is the player that we've seen so far this year. I think he's closer to the player we saw last year than he was this year. So I at least for this year, I would not trade him in the offseason. I would stick keep him around and keep him on the team, see what he does next year in a full season, hopefully a full season. But I'll say it just depends on how long they plan on rebuilding. Because like I said, if you're not planning to be competitive for another like 4 or 5 years, then I mean, there is no really point to have him on the team.
Now, these ones are the wild cards to me. The last 2 names I'm going to bring up, because they're having years, I think, that are they're overperforming what we thought they potentially would. Eric Gonzalez and Jacob Stallings.
I was thinking of Jacob Stallings in my head, but I would keep him around because he's one of the only ones on your team performing decently. And what do you really have at catcher in the Pirates system?
Yeah,
There's not much there. There's not much behind him.
More so than him performing on a team with a lot of guys that aren't, because I don't really care about, that aspect of it, at least this season. I think the bigger part of it is that the catching is pretty bare. That cabinet's pretty bare in the farm system right now. So unless you're talking about bringing in some catching prospects through other trades that are pretty close to the major league level, yeah, I think that you kind of have to hang on to Jacob Stallings. It's not like he's 30 himself. So he's just kind of like a late bloomer, finally getting his shot to be the number one catcher. But I think that he could generate a decent bit of trade interest just on his defense alone. I mean, his bat's been above average, at least what I was expecting him to provide with the bat this year. But the defense is really what you would be, coveting when you talk about Jacob Stallings. His framing, his overall defense is just it's well above average. It's amongst the tops in baseball. So I think that he would generate quite a bit of trade interest if the Pirates were to dangle him. But I have no idea who would be catching opening day for the Pirates next year if they were to trade him.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think teams would covet him even as a backup catcher, like where he'd play like 50 games a season. If you're going to a contender, I feel like they would definitely be interested in that. But with the Pirates, in that case, I don't know where their catcher would come for next year or in the next coming years, because you probably have to either go sign a veteran in the offseason, a free agent, or because there's nothing in the system. It is what it is, but there's nothing there, at least right now. So
yeah. So, I mean, we've had one of their catching prospects on here, Dion Stafford, and I'm not sure where he's at, I think he's still like their highest rated catching prospect, but he's not among the top 30 overall Pirate prospects. So I think that just kind of tells you where that position is in the system. And he's a guy that I is more offensive than defensive. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, obviously he's not major league ready. I'd have no idea who would be catching for this team next year, unless they're bringing back like John Ryan Murphy, and obviously like Luke Maile was hurt before the year even started, but they traded for him or signed him, from the Blue Jays. So I have no idea, but I think that teams probably will be calling about him.
Yeah, and just to bring it back to Dion, he was in high A last year, so he would still have double A and triple A to go through. So he's nowhere close to being MLB ready. Yeah. So
he would have played at Altoona this year.
Yeah. So I just don't see him move just because of the Pirates' catching situation. What was the other name he brought up?
Eric Gonzalez.
He could generate some interest, but at the same time, I feel like teams that aren't gonna put all the stock into this year because people are having a bad year. I feel like a lot of teams might not do that for players like Eric Gonzalez that are having a good year in this short year. Because, we saw what he was last year for the limited time he played because he was injured. But, I feel like as a team, I wouldn't be really quick to snag him just because I don't know what he fully is as a player over a 162-game normal schedule, even though he's performing well this season.
Yeah, and I get that. That's kind of the reverse side of what we were talking about with why the Pirates weren't trading guys. So that makes sense. Absolutely. I think that though, when you look at Eric Gonzalez, he doesn't really have a spot, at least in terms of like the long-term future of this team. You would hope that shortstop is either, Kevin Newman or Cole Tucker next year. Eric Gonzalez isn't getting playing time there. And Brian Hayes at third base pretty much every single day. Whoever's not playing at shortstop, probably playing at second base, because hopefully Adam Frazier's been traded at that point. There's not a spot, in my opinion, for Eric Gonzalez.
And Cole Tucker's not going to be the full-time center fielder?
If that's their plan, more power to them. I don't know. I don't see it. But I don't see a spot for Eric Gonzalez long-term here. And he's helping the Pirates in that he's maximizing his value right now. I don't know what they would get for him in a trade, but I expected that to be something they explore, just because you don't have a spot for him. And regardless of what you get in a trade, it's better than letting him, just sit on the bench, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Realistically, the moral of this conversation is that no one is off the table on the Pirates, or almost no one is off the table when it comes to the Pirates. There's only a few people, couple names that they will not be shopping. Everyone else, it's like open season. Either you're actively shopping them or you're going to be taking calls on them. There's only probably 3 or 4 guys that you're not taking calls on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's enough baseball. So let's move on to some hockey. A trade, another one. Jim Rutherford pulled off with Nick Bjugstad being traded to the Minnesota Wild for a conditional 7th-round pick. The Pirates. Man, I'm still in the Pirates. The Penguins retained 50% of Bjugstad's salary in the trade. This had Twitter pretty fired up, and I can understand why. I mean, Nick Bjugstad's a guy that we had pretty high hopes for coming over here. He's a big guy, your typical ideal third center. But just never really panned out here. Injuries, obviously. He's costing over $4 million. It wasn't working out. We had a pretty good idea that he was going to be moved in some fashion. And here it is, a conditional 7th-round pick, and the Penguins have to eat 50% of that salary, which I'm not thrilled with. I mean, it's a salary cap, a salary dump deal that they decide to do, but they're also retaining 50% of salary, which you don't typically see that too often, especially for a guy like Nick Bjugstad, who, again, we know what the ceiling is there, but he's coming off pretty major surgery, back surgery. So Minnesota is kind of taking a flyer here as well. I don't know how you feel about the deal, but honestly, I didn't expect Nick Bjugstad to be on the roster next year regardless. And this, even though they are retaining 50% of salary, does clear a little bit of cap.
Yeah, I mean, I said that even whenever the Penguins are fully healthy, I think you can make the argument that Nick Bjugstad might not play. So it made sense to trade him. I mean, we've said before, and I said that I think one of the guys that will be traded initially to start all this will be either Hornquist or Bjugstad, and it ends up being Bjugstad. I mean, it makes sense to trade him. Makes sense to try to dump some salary. I mean, I get they kept $2 million. I mean, it's like $2 million a change, but I mean, it is what it is. But I feel like when you look at it, it's better than keeping that on the roster. So it's only for 1 year. It's not like they're keeping it for a long time. It's only for this season. So I guess it just depends on what they want to do with their RFA signings and their free agency signings. I don't know how much money they feel like they need. But I know a lot. Like I saw someone say maybe they're trying to move him that way they can keep Murray. I'm like, dude, they're not signing Murray. I mean, I'm gonna say that right now. They are not doing that to try to keep money from Murray. But yeah, I don't mind it. It's a conditional 7th-round pick. Do we know what the condition is?
I think he has to play a certain number of games. So
I mean, really, it doesn't matter to me at this point, just because I feel like he wouldn't be playing that much next season anyway. And if you eventually want to bring up guys like Poulin or Laguerre or anything like that, then that's definitely going to push some people out of the lineup, and I feel like he would be one of them. So yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and for him, he's a Minnesota guy, so cool for him. Hopefully, he stays healthy, not just because it helps us get something out of it in that 7th-round pick, but just for him, his health, getting to play for his hometown team. So, be a really cool story for him. But some other notes around the league: the Caps' new head coach, Laviolette, is on his way to coach the Washington Capitals. All I'm going to say is I was really hoping it was Mike Babcock.
That would have been funny. I would have loved to see like how long it took before like him and Ovi got into it. But I mean, Laviolette, what is this? His like 5th team as a head coach or something like that? I mean, he's been with Nashville. He's been with the Flyers. What other ones? I know he's been with more than just those two.
Yeah.
I think he won a Stanley Cup with Jim Rutherford in Carolina. I could be wrong on that, but I think so.
Islanders as well. So
Islanders. Is it Carolina too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. He won the Stanley Cup with Rutherford. But yeah, I don't know how it's going to go there. I mean, he's a decent coach. I just feel like he gets passed around a lot and fired a lot. But I mean, he's won a Stanley Cup before. He brought Nashville to the Stanley Cup, so we know he can win. It'll be interesting to see what he does with the Capitals.
Yeah, I think that the thing with him is he goes to places and immediately it's like a really good thing, but then it gets bad as time goes on. So I think for the Caps immediately, who are trying to win right now, Alex Ovechkin's getting up there in age, like their window's kind of right now. It's probably a good hire. I mean, I definitely think that they made the better choice with him over Mike Babcock. But yeah, you just wonder how things will progress as time goes on, because it seems to, whatever he does with these teams, his coaching seems to wear off. I don't know if his voice just gets lost relatively quick or what, but I think it's a very good hire for, a season or two for sure. The Coyotes have a new GM. They hired former Blues assistant GM Bill Armstrong to that position. Our assistant GM had actually interviewed for that position as well. Pierre McGuire had interviewed for that position. So yeah, it's gonna be Bill Armstrong, who has been in that position, I believe, since 2018, but he's been with the organization since 2004. So definitely, he's well adversed in the NHL world. He's been around for a long time. Seems like a good hire. Seems like, a guy that's well earned a shot to be a GM in this league. Again, when I saw that, the first thing that just reminded me of is how weird that situation played out with John Chaika.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I still don't know what happened with that. You're the youngest GM ever to be hired, and then you're fired or stepped away. Do we even know if he quit or was fired?
I think they said he quit.
Okay. So
they put out a statement pretty much saying that he quit, but I think his own statement pretty much said that it was like he was fired. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember there was a whole mix. Like no one knew really what happened, but either way, it's a team. Even if you did quit, it's a team that was looking like they were getting some promise. Even though they're not that good, but they have some solid pieces. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he can do well with it. I think the fans in Arizona definitely deserve a playoff team eventually. I mean, the last time they made playoffs was 2013.
You're not considering their appearance this year in the bubble?
No. I mean, if the Penguins weren't in the playoffs technically this year, then no, they aren't either.
Yeah.
So does that mean the Penguins streak is technically broken, or is there like an asterisk on that?
I have no idea. I mean, like, the way I see it is everybody that was there was part of the playoffs, but I don't know if that's how it's going to be considered.
Yeah, because I mean, the Penguins had the longest active streak of making it to the playoffs since 2007 or 6. It was the 06-07 season.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Speaking of the playoffs, the Stars have clinched their spot in the Stanley Cup final.
Your boy, Tyler Seguin.
Yeah, I mean, but I didn't expect this at all. I mean, they've gone now a few more rounds than I expected. It's one of those stories, I guess, that you can talk about, that a team that is playing their best hockey when they need to play their best hockey. I mean, it's weird to say, but Anton Khudobin stepping in net due to an injury to Ben Bishop has been the best thing that's happened to them. And it's such to say about Ben Bishop, but that's just the way it is. I mean, Khudobin stood on his head for a lot of that series, and you just wonder, would they still be in that spot had Ben Bishop not got hurt and if he was the goalie? And I don't think that you can definitely say yes. I don't think you can definitely say no either. But just seeing how it's worked out, I mean, I'm happy for the Stars. It's wild to me that they're going to be playing for the Cup.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be my team, no matter who wins out of Tampa and the Islanders. I'm going to be cheering for the Stars. So I'm excited about that. It's definitely it's cool to see like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. I mean, we've talked about it before. Miro Heiskanen is a all-star in this league, so I'm going to be excited to see him play in the Cup. But who do you think that they're going to be playing? Because the Islanders have extended the series with Tampa Bay. I mean, I thought that Tampa Bay was going to shut the door last night and win, and it took double overtime for the Islanders to keep their hopes alive.
I picked the Islanders to win last night, but I'm picking Tampa to win the series. I don't think that the Islanders have enough left in the tank to win two more. If they win game 6, though, they say anything can happen in game 7, but I think Tampa closes it out tomorrow. So, I mean, but again, the Islanders, one of those teams that kind of like the Stars, people just, kept picking to lose, and they wouldn't. They kept facing a team that people said they were not as good as, and they would beat them. And now here they are in the Eastern Conference Final, battled back, and now it's a 3-2 series. I just think that Tampa has too much, and you could say that for every single year, and I get that. I get that, that should be thrown out the window, the amount of talent they have, because they always have the talent. But yeah, being up 3-1 and putting the Islanders in that position, that's a tough hole to climb out of against a team that's that talented. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
would say that the Lightning win game 6. If it goes to 7, though, all bets are off.
Honestly, if it goes to 7, I might pick the Islanders just because why not? They've gone through what? So they played Florida in the qualifying round, which isn't a terrible team. They played the Capitals, they played Philly, and now they play Tampa Bay. I mean, they've just gone on this tear through the playoffs. It's been very impressive, and I think the Capitals, even though they just got a new coach, they probably are hoping they still had Barry Trotz. Or like wishing they still have Barry Trotz. Just seeing what he's done with the Islanders, it's so impressive. And you could think, what could the Capitals have done if Barry Trotz would have stayed? Could they have repeated? Could they have been potentially made a run this year? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, that was like a shock to me that they couldn't come to an agreement. They weren't willing to raise his salary like $500,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how that has played out for both of those franchises now since. Yeah, again, the Islanders, great story. We could say they're overachieving, but when you do it in back-to-back years, you can kind of throw that out the window. I don't know that they are, again, if they have enough to win the cup. I think that Tampa beats them in game 6. If it goes to game 7, man, I might be with you. I think Tampa wins the series. If it's 6, if it gets to game 7, I might pick the Islanders.
Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, we've said it multiple times. The Islanders know how to win. They're just such a well-coached team. And I feel like even though Tampa Bay has the firepower to beat them, and I mean Tampa Bay has the firepower to beat really anybody in 5 or 6 games. It just depends on how the other team plays. And in a game 7, I really trust Barry Trotz coaching enough to win them that game.
It would probably be like a 2-1 game. And if the Islanders score first, I mean, that's how they win.
If they score the first, it's just going to be trap. You're not getting in our zone.
Yeah, that's the thing is if they give up the first goal, they have to play a completely different way. If they score first and make you have to play the way that they do, they're very tough to beat.
Agreed.
They might be the most sound hockey team in the league.
Oh, I would say so. I mean,
they play the best structure.
We've looked at their roster. I mean, they've got a lot of good players, but they don't have like 1 or 2 superstars like the Penguins do, for example, or other teams. I mean, you could say like Kucherov and Stamkos and Tampa Bay, and Hedman. Like other teams, they have these superstars. The Islanders don't really have that. I mean, they have like Matthew Barzal, but like, is he as good as those guys? I wouldn't say so. So you have this team of just really good players and just normal good players, and they're just very well coached. And I think the big thing about it is all of them buy in. There's no guy that doesn't play to the way that Barry Trotz wants to run the team. Everybody is bought into the system, and the results have shown that it works.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited to watch guys like Miro Heiskanen play in the Stanley Cup final, albeit without fans, but still going to be very exciting for guys like that to get the national spotlight, because you wonder, there's probably be a lot more fans that really haven't been paying attention to this point that are going to tune in during the Stanley Cup final. So, yeah, excited for guys like Tyler Seguin, who I'm a big fan of, and Miro Heiskanen to get that national attention. The last thing in the NHL, and this kind of surprised me, they seem intent to play 82 games for the 2020-2021 season. And we talked about that a little bit on here because we thought that they might go to a shortened season, not necessarily the 48 games that they did during the half lockout year, but more like a 60 game season potentially or something like that, just due to the amount of games or the amount of time that was lost during the pandemic before they got into the bubble. So, but if they're going to play 82 games, I mean, I have no idea what that schedule is going to look like. I don't love it because I want them to shorten next season so that the following season we can finally be back on track with an October to June schedule.
This is what we talked about earlier this summer, that neither of us wanted to happen. We
I
did
know.
not we did not want this upcoming season to affect future seasons. We know that this season was going to be screwed up, and we still don't have an official start date. It's been rumored that it could be as early as December 1st. I don't know that it's going to be that early. I feel like if it's going to start in December, it'd be more towards Christmas time, or even if they're around Christmas time, maybe they'll just wait for January 1 I said just January 1 instead of January 1st. What just went through my head? But I think they could wait until January. But if they're playing an 82 game schedule, I just don't see how they fit that in without going into the summer again. I mean, because normally you're playing you're playing beginning of October to beginning of April. That's like 6 months. So realistically,
And then 2 months for playoffs.
yeah. So realistically, say you start, in December, you're going to be going into June, and then you're going to be going into August for the Stanley Cup final. I mean, and then what? You're going to just start in October for that season as a normal schedule, and you only have like a month off or like a month and a half off. I just don't get it. I don't see why they feel the need to play 82 games. Like you said, like leagues, they want the money, but it just, I feel like you're damaging future seasons for no reason when you have the chance to make a shortened season. And like we said, it doesn't have to be the 48 games like it was in 2012, 2013. It can be 62, 64, 60. I mean, anything like that, where you're just making it harder. You're making it harder on yourself by doing this, I guess, because eventually everything has to get back to normal. And I just don't see a way that you're doing that sooner by doing this.
Yeah, and another thing is, and I know that they just agreed to a new CBA wildly during the extended the CBA, I should say, during the pandemic, which was kind of wild to me. The NHL did with the Players Association, but you would think that how many players want to do that? I feel like they would probably want to have a shorter season, get as most rest as possible, and then try to have a full season in the 2021-2022 year. But I think that, like, I almost wanted to say it would damage the relationship if the NHL forced them to have an 82 game year, because if the players didn't want to, we talked about it with baseball, how baseball ended up they could lay the hammer down at any time. This is what we're doing. And they have to listen because you can't strike in the middle of a CBA. And it's the same way in the NHL. So ultimately the NHL can do whatever they want. I wonder, I can't imagine that there's too many players that would be on board with having that short of an off season. If the plan is to play 82 games and then turn around and play 82 again and have the 2021-2022 year start again in October.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, athletes are creatures of habit, and especially NHL players. So they want to get back on the normal schedule that they normally have when it comes to the off season and the regular season and their workouts and everything like that. So I agree with you. I don't think many people are going to be liking them playing an 82 game schedule. I think a lot of them would get on board with that shortened schedule because they want to get back to as normal as quick as possible, just like the rest of us do. I mean, I don't see a benefit from playing 82 games at all. I can't think of one. I mean, I guess from a league perspective, you make money, but besides, if you take money out of it, which is hard to do in any professional sports, I know that's impossible. What's the benefit of playing 82 games whenever you could just play a shortened season and try to get back to normal sooner?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it because that's what we've been talking about for a couple months now. Anytime that this comes up, it just makes sense to play on a shortened schedule and then hope that the 2021-2022 year is completely unaffected and it looks just like we've seen it all our entire lives, pretty much, just back to normal.
I'm curious what the NBA is going to do because, I mean, the NBA and the NHL schedule, they pretty much line up almost identical with each other throughout the year. So I wonder what they're going to do when it comes to the amount of games played and when their season will start, because it's pretty similar timelines for both leagues.
Absolutely. I think that wraps this show up.
Yeah, it was a bit longer than we probably thought it was going to be.
Yeah, right about an hour, which is good. But I'll tell you guys real quick about Keeks Barbershop. Keeks Barbershop, it's an old-fashioned barbershop. It's located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, Keeks Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, please make sure you are subscribed. Hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. If you are listening back, no matter what platform it might be on, please head to the YouTube to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you, as always, for listening to this production brought to you by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners, coast to coast, sports, gambling, and more. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Around the 412. Follow them at Crowworthy. Visit the Pittsburgh City page at crowworthy.com for blogs, podcasts like this one, gambling advice, all that, much more. Again, crowworthy.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stick around for the Steelers show if you are watching live, or if you're listening back, make sure to listen to that one as well. We got some good stuff coming to you, including betting advice where we're going to hammer down. Anyways, thanks for listening to this episode of Around the 412. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. All right. That's one. What? Yes?
Never mind. I didn't know if you were still using that or not.
Yeah, I can bring it up when we're done, though.
Yeah. Well, when is that going to be, though? Because
About-
I got to.
About an hour or so.
Yeah. See, I got a call apparently that I need to go in and do something. So
Oh.
I'll just use a different one.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
What did he need?
He was seeing if I was using my laptop because he has like an emergency call at work or something that he has to dial into.
Gotcha.
All right. Steelers time. Oh, wait, let me change the title of the YouTube.
And I'm looking at these college games. There's not a lot I like.
In terms of betting or just in general, you don't like the.
Yeah, well, in the matchups and in terms of betting, I feel like it's tough to choose. I mean, there's a couple games that I like the bets, but I mean, for the most part, at least for what's listed, because it's early in the week, so some of these games aren't listed as like for odds and totals or for spreads and totals, but I don't know.
Why can't I edit the title? There we go. All right. You can keep looking as we go, but are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Around the 412. We are part of allsteelers.com and proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, and more. You can follow Crowworthy at Crowworthy on Twitter and visit us at crowworthy.com. You can also check out the Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcasts like this one, blogs, and more. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty. What's going on, man?
We're 1-0. That's what's going on.
2-0 now. I didn't mess that one up either.
I meant the Steelers, but
Oh, well,
you are 2-0 in the ad read, still batting 1,000.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I practice.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a lot about the Steelers, a couple other injuries around the league, and maybe some surprise 1-0 teams as well, which both of the teams we're going to talk about pop up on the Steelers schedule. But first, I want to tell you guys about Manscaped. So support for Around the 412 is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. They offer precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. I have one. Tyler has one. Our friends have them. They are awesome. They work great. They're like nothing that you've ever used before. The complementary products such as the toner, the deodorant, they are also fantastic. I know that we both just got the cologne and the body wash as well. They have boxers, they have t-shirts, they have mints for some reason, no idea why, but all that stuff is awesome. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The new Lawnmower 3.0 is out. They spent 18 months working on it. It's a third generation trimmer. It features cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin safe technology pioneered by Manscaped themselves. This thing is premium, lasts up to 90 minutes off of its charger. Speaking of the charger, it's USB. It works great. The Lawnmower 3.0 is waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. It's got an LED light to illuminate the grooming areas for a closer and more precise trim. It has a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. So this whole thing is great. Everything about them is great. They're a great company. We're happy to partner up with them. And if you go to manscaped.com, put all the items in your cart, everything that they got, just throw them in a cart, right? Go to checkout. Use the code 412 at checkout. That would get you 20% off everything in that cart plus free shipping. Again, code 412 at checkout, manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. You can thank us. Send us the screenshot whenever you purchase whatever you're going to purchase.
I didn't tell you this last show, but I'll tell you this one. So I purposely was keeping the Manscaped stuff away from my mother just because she didn't see the slogan and stuff. But then she came into my room the other day and saw the box, and she's like, "Oh, you bought a new pair of shoes? Let me see them." And she opens the box, and it just says in bright gold, "Your balls will thank you."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, I don't like that," and just shut the box. That was funny.
Explain to her the situation.
Oh yeah, she knows.
Oh, okay.
She knows that we're sponsored with Manscaped, but she's like, tell them they should change their logo or their slogan. And I'm like, it's not really my call.
Change it to use code 412 at checkout. That should be their slogan.
I'd be good with that one.
Okay, so anyway, the Steelers are 1-0, open up with a win on Monday Night Football against the New York Football Giants. I think that there's not a lot of negative, in my opinion, takeaway from the game other than the injuries. We saw pretty much what we wanted to saw, maybe even a little bit better. I mean, we fully expected there to be some rust when it came to the offense. They shook it off, relatively quicker than I expected. I thought we might even see this go on for a couple games, and the defense would have to carry them to wins. And the defense played fantastic as well. I think that the points that the Giants put up didn't look exactly indicative of how the game went. But we'll talk about that as we go on throughout the show to break down the game. But just generally speaking, what were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, first and foremost, it's exciting to have Steeler football back. I will say that. But I thought the offense, whenever they got rolling, I mean, you really saw a difference with that last drive of the first half. That's kind of when they clicked it together. And then from then on, they were rolling. I mean, they were ready to go. And the defense looked awesome. I mean, especially that defensive front. I mean, it's definitely one of the best in football. And it was really fun to watch. I mean, Bud Dupree ate up Austin Jackson all night. And yeah, I was really excited, and I was really pleased with how the game turned out. I from the beginning of the game, I was kind of being ready to be a little disappointed. But once they figured it out, it was really interesting to watch. But like you said, the only thing that sucks about the game is the injuries that happened.
Did you mean Andrew Thomas, by the way?
Yeah, Andrew Thomas, not Austin Jackson. He is in Miami.
Yeah, I know why that name is on your mind, because it's the 1-year anniversary of the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade today.
Yeah.
Which netted Miami the first round pick they used on Austin Jackson. But yes, Bud Dupree was phenomenal in that game. Him and TJ combined for 15 pressures. Man, the defense looked pretty much like we thought they would. There were a couple breakdowns in the secondary that led to the one Giants touchdown that you would really attribute to the defense giving up. Obviously, the field goal that they gave up, they were fortunate to hold them to 3 after the Deontay Johnson fumble, and then the garbage time touchdown where the defense was pretty much playing prevent. You can just attribute that to that. But the Slayton touchdown, the first one, that's the one play that kind of was like a breakdown in the secondary. Minkah makes a read to try to cover that crossing route. Nobody covers over top. That's supposed to be Joe Hayden if Minkah does make the read that he did. Steven Nelson and Hayden, the ball kind of gets caught in between them. But still, overall the pressure got there like we expected them to, going against two very one's a rookie tackle. The other one should pretty much be a rookie, not whole lot of experience over at right tackle. The Giants offensive line, atrocious. Saquon Barkley was running into a brick wall, 6 yards rushing in this game. He was negative before halftime. I mean, it was just an unbelievable
on pace for 96 yards this season.
Yeah. I mean, an unbelievable effort from the defensive front. Getting back to the offense, though, because that's really, what we wanted to circle to watch in this game. Just wondering how quickly they would be able to shake off the rust. Ben looked like Ben, and I think it really showed. You brought up the drive right before half, and that's what I was going to say. When they got into that 2-minute drill right before halftime, that's when it was so magnified what he would do for this offense, because we knew that was going to happen. If he's an average player this year, that's fully what we expected. So to see him come in and do what he did, I mean, it was great, because we didn't know if it would be in game 1, game 2, game 3, how quickly he'd be able to shake off the rust. And the answer was just a few drives.
Yeah. And I think with that drive right before halftime, we also saw the offense. I think Ben was really calling the plays and being able to analyze the defense and make his own decisions more so. The drives before that, I don't know about you, but I was getting frustrated with the play calling a lot. It seemed like either they were getting too fancy or they were making dumb decisions. Like I don't get the running it on second and long. To me, you might as well punt. I don't
I
understand
think
it.
that's what it was, 2nd and 19 at the goal line, and they were like pretty close to the goal line. And yeah, they just were trying to run the ball.
Yeah, they gained like 3 yards. You're putting yourself in a bad situation. I think they should have been passing more throughout the entire first half, but once they figured it out, they didn't slow down, and it was really exciting to watch. It just sucks to see a couple of the guys go down the way they did.
I think that the one thing that I was looking for early in the game that didn't happen, and would be my only complaint as far as the offense goes, other than them trying to, before James Conner went down with the ankle injury, they were only letting him touch the ball on these shotgun runs, which we saw a lot last year. I hate those so much. I can't stand them. We never do anything with them, especially with having like three moving pieces on the offensive line going into the game. And once again, it's going to look different next week now too, as we'll talk about when we talk about the injuries. But that's the only way they were giving James Conner the ball was from the shotgun runs. And my ideal scenario, the game script going into that game would be let Ben get as many easy completions as we can to kick off the game. I wanted to see them pass the ball on first down a lot more than they did. That would probably be my only complaint with the game, though, is that they didn't give him those easy completions on first down early in the game more.
You bring up the run game, and one thing that I would have liked to see more is Derek Watt being in the lineup and just running out of the I formation, just power running, especially whenever Benny Snell came in and was the main back after James Conner got hurt. I feel like Benny Snell thrives on that type of football. So, I mean, I think Derek Watt got 6 or 8 snaps on offense or something like that. I would have liked to see him get more, especially down towards the red zone, maybe trying to punch it in that way. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to complain about. I think the receivers looked really good. I was really impressed with Ben, and yeah, I really like the offense. I'm just trying to think in the words like in my head. I just really am excited for this offense because I feel like what we saw on Monday was just like a snippet of what they could be, and they looked good then. And I think they're just going to excel from here.
This thing is, you expect them to get better as the season goes on, and they're going to play tougher defenses. I don't think the Giants' defense is, as bad as, especially up front. That's a relatively decent run stopping defense, and it looked, like that was going to be the case. And I started to get worried because if we had to go pass heavy and Ben had to throw it close to 50 times, then that's kind of worrisome. But thankfully, after James Conner goes out, and it's a very unfortunate thing, we'll talk about that a little bit too. Benny Snell comes in and he's now third in the league in rushing after 1 week with what he did. So I wanted to chalk up most of their lack of running due to the offensive line not being able to open up holes for James Conner. But then Benny Snell comes in and runs behind that same offensive line and puts up the numbers he did. So it's hard to and I didn't go back and watch any tape. I didn't see any of the all 22 stuff that people were talking about on Twitter a lot today or anything like that. But just to the naked eye, I don't even know if the offensive line was blocking that much better as the game went on. I really just think it was that good of a game and that much drastically of a better game for Benny Snell over James Conner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we all know what kind of runner Benny Snell is. He's a very aggressive downhill runner, and I think he just thrived in that moment. James Conner, to me, even though he didn't get any help from the offensive line when it came to running the football, but it's to me since 2018 where he had his breakout season whenever Le'Veon held out, I just feel like after that he has looked like, not that he doesn't have anything to prove, because obviously James Conner, as everybody knows, he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder no matter what. However, I just feel like it's different whenever he knows he's going to be the starter and he just runs a little differently. I feel like he hasn't run the same that he did in 2018. You don't see as much him making guys miss and his just power running. It's. I feel like I don't want to say he's running soft because obviously he's not, but it compared to what Benny Snell was doing, it does look like he was running softer.
Yeah, I think that, for lack of better words, I'm just going to say that he, pissed off is how you're talking about. 2018, you're talking about a guy that wasn't expected to be the starter, was put in that role, and people were talking about how are we going to have any type of running game without Le'Veon Bell. So that is, you can probably attribute a decent bit of his success to the fact that he was trying to answer questions, like that. Now this year, you would think that he's trying to fend off guys like Benny Snell, guys like Anthony McFarland, potentially Jalen Samuels, who did get a helmet on Monday. We saw play some snaps, but it's really Benny Snell. He's trying to fend off Benny Snell, and he hasn't looked like a guy that can do that. And if it's, just health reasons or whatever, I didn't see a play where it looked like he hurt his ankle. I'm curious to see how much he pops up on the injury report, and what happens as we get closer to this game against Denver on Sunday, because I think that him being on the sidelines without his helmet on is more just an attribute to what Benny Snell was doing in that game, more so than an ankle injury to James Conner himself.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure he did get injured at some point. Like, I don't think they would just hold him out just cause. Like, especially because he didn't get any snaps in the second half, which you think if he was able to play, he at least would a little bit just to take some of that pressure off of Benny Snell. But I mean, it's just unfortunate for this guy. I mean, it seems like he's just got the injury bug and he can't get it, he can't shake it. Which, I mean, I know people want to like knock him for getting injured, but it is what it is. I mean, it's hard because it's just unlucky for him. It's not really his fault that he gets injured. You can't really blame the actual person for getting injured. No. But I don't think like that shouldn't be taken away anything that Benny Snell did. Like, that's why I think that Benny Snell should be, at least for this next upcoming week, if James Conner can play, Benny Snell still should be your number one back going into the game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is, where do you stand on that? But real quick, to go back to what I was saying, I guess all I was saying is James Conner, I'm sure, had a little bit of an ailment, but I think if you didn't have Benny Snell running the way he did, if they were still lacking something in the run game, I think that you might have seen him go back in. But that's neither here nor there. That's all speculation. As far as this week going into the Denver game, I don't see how you don't have Benny Snell as your number one running back. And, you can talk about the way he ran as well. How you gain the coach's trust, pass protection, and you see him pick up that blitz on the first, or was it the second Juju touchdown?
Second
Juju touchdown. The pass, his pass protection on that where he picked up the blitz. I mean, coaches are going to go back, and when they watch the film of that game, I'm sure that those guys stopped it right there, circled him, and told everybody in the running back room, look at what Benny Snell did on this play. And that's how you gain the coach's trust. That's how you get on the field more. And that's how I believe that Benny Snell goes into this game against Denver as running back one, not just because of the way that he ran, but I think the whole game that he had. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm with you 100%. I think he looked great. I think, and not just running the ball, like you said, pass protection. He did really well, and he should be the number one back, or at least given the opportunity to be the number one back, because just like we're not knocking James Conner for getting injured all the time, but just because you're James Conner doesn't mean we can't give another guy a look. And you have to give him that look, because look at what he did on Monday night. I think that from here on out, he should at least be the number one going into a game, even if James Conner is healthy. Now, if James outperforms him in a game, maybe they start to split carries more. And I'm not saying take the ball completely away from James, but I also think it should be kind of like what their mentality was for James Conner was going to be their bell cow, or so-called bell cow, but I don't know how you could be a bell cow with the injuries that he has. But have basically Benny Snell be their bell cow, and then sprinkle in James Conner, sprinkle in Anthony McFarland, which I want to see more Anthony McFarland in this Denver game, because I really want to see what he could do, at least give him like 5 or 6 carries. Because, I mean, did he even have a carry? I don't think he
wasn't
did.
active.
Yeah, so I would like to see him in the Denver game just to see something from him. But yeah, I'm with you. Benny Snell, he really performed well, and he should be the number one back.
Snell cow instead of bell cow.
Snell cow.
No, but I
Sounds
don't
like a
see
shirt.
how anybody can disagree with that. And it's not like just because James Conner's, injury history, but, even looking at this guy wasn't productive in this game even before going out with the injury. Benny Snell came in and just made the most of his opportunity. And I think he deserves to be rewarded for that. And how do you reward a guy like that? Let him be the number one and prove it until he doesn't. If he goes out there and he's running into a brick wall and you put in James Conner and James Conner's effective, well, then okay, then it's a different story. But I think that Benny Snell, through both running the ball and also how he's held up in pass protection and his growth there, he looks like a completely different runner. I mean, he looks the same as far as, as a punishing runner going downhill, as you mentioned, but there's so much more burst in him this year. And it's, we've seen that time and time again with guys going into their second season as a Steelers running back. He's completely transformed himself. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for what he can do for this offense. I still, obviously I want James Conner to be healthy because we've talked about it before. If all these guys can work together, they can provide what one dynamic running back would just by using a couple guys, though. It's just not all built into one. But I think that the best Steelers backfield would have all these guys healthy, all these guys bringing their elements to the game, because I don't think that Benny Snell offers a whole lot as a pass catcher. I think he's somewhat capable. Ben missed him on one, which would have been interesting to see what would have happened had he gotten the ball into his hands. But yeah, just getting back to it, I think that Benny Snell deserves to be RB1 going into this game against Denver. And hopefully James Conner's healthy and he can get some carries, but these situations, they'll play themselves out on the football field.
Yeah, and I feel like as Pittsburgh fans, we kind of just have a soft spot for James Conner, and so people that think they should just give James Conner the spot back, even though I keep saying Benny Smell, like I've said it multiple times over the past few weeks. It's very easy to slip off the tongue. Benny Snell had performed the way he did Monday night. I just feel like a lot of Pittsburgh fans, they've got a soft spot for Conner, and it's really easy to really root for the guy. And obviously we're still rooting for the guy, but I feel like you have to look past a feel-good story at some point. Just like he wants to be looked at as a football player. He doesn't want the cancer thing to be who he is. And if he wants to be looked at as a football player, then that also includes having guys outperform you and play better than you and being able to start over you. So I think that people need to look past that and realize that Benny Snell, at least for the time being, should be their go-to back. And I mean, going back to last year, James Conner's exited 4 straight games with injury. I mean, the last three games of the last season and the first game of this season, he's exited all 4 of them, which, I mean, it's very disappointing, and it sucks as a fan, and it sucks for him as a player.
I can't imagine for him as a player. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as an organization, you can't feel bad for that. I mean, you can feel bad for that, but you can't just, I don't know, you can't like let him be the number one.
Can't
just
play
because,
into your decision. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Even as far as, he's kind of taken the decision out of their hands in terms of giving him a contract past this year. I feel like, if you can't be out on the football field at all to even like prove what you're worth when you are healthy, he's not even making a decision for them. I mean, we talked about it before. Could they get, a little bit of a hometown discount and keep him around? I mean, there's no point if he's not going to be on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, last year he missed like half the season. He didn't even make it through half of this game. So, and if Benny Snell, I did it again. Shoot. If Benny Snell performs the way that he did last night for the majority of the season or prolonged into the season, then that's just another reason that you wouldn't have to give Conner a contract, because you've got guys behind Conner that are able to perform. And we've said it multiple times. Running backs, there's a few elite ones, but then there's a majority you can replace them. So, yeah, it looks like even after one game, Conner's probably not getting a contract next year.
It's a shame, but I'm fully invested in Benny Snell. I feel like he is a very capable number one, and even if you're talking about him not being able to play on third down, looking past this year as well. That's, Anthony McFarland is going to be a piece for this offense as well. And I'm interested to see how quickly he gets a helmet on game days and can contribute, because I'm excited for him. I think those two guys together will definitely be able to, alleviate what you were getting from James Conner when James Conner was healthy.
Yeah, and as far as we know, those two are, I mean, we haven't seen McFarland play yet, but those two are like polar opposite when it comes to the style of running. So I think it could be a good dynamic for both. And I saw someone on Twitter say today that Benny Snell is like what you think of Steelers football, like running the ball, ground and pound, downhill, very aggressive, angry runner. So, I mean, I'm excited for him as the Steelers running back.
For sure. And actually, like I mentioned about how much burst he actually showed this year too, wasn't something we saw last year. He had a 30-yard run in that game against the Giants, which is longer than like pretty much every run that Le'Veon has had since leaving the Steelers, or maybe even the last year that he was here, and longer than every run that we had last year, besides that one anomaly run that we got from Edmonds against the Colts. So he looks just like a completely different guy. It's a lot of the same elements to his running game. It's the same type of style. It's still Benny Snell football. It just has a little bit more burst to it.
Right.
And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the offense, obviously we saw the 2 touchdowns he caught, 6 receptions, 69 yards for Juju. But really what stole the show for a lot of people that won't show up on the box score, him recovering that Benny Snell fumble. It was pretty much him and 6 New York Giants, and you're assuming that the Giants came away with that football. Juju's awareness on that play, unbelievable, and a lot of his teammates were talking about it, saying that just shows that that guy who's playing on the last year of his contract is not focused on his contract right now. He's just trying to do anything he can to help the team win football games. You got to love that from him, because that's, kind of going against what a lot of people think he is.
Yeah, it was really awesome to see. And like you said, Ben said that people like in a contract year, they're not going to be diving into a pile with 6 other defenders or 9 other defenders or whatever the number was. But you're going to be at the bottom of that pile. You don't really see guys in contract years be doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that just goes to show that Juju is the type of player that we've always thought he is. And I hope that a lot of people in this town, not to name any names, sees that as well and really tries to reconsider the way they think about Juju, because obviously he does do TikTok, he does do social media and all that sort of stuff, but who cares? I mean, he's performing the way he did on the field Monday night. I'm okay with him doing whatever he wants off the field.
And here's my thing. Even if he weren't performing, I don't think that stuff plays into it at all. Like, obviously, like that one TikTok he put up in the hotel room. I mean, that was hard to watch.
I mean,
But
yeah,
I don't care
that
he
sucked.
but I don't care that he did it. It's just too many people care about what this guy does off of the football field, because they think that on the football field that should just be their entire lives. They should just play football and not do anything else. And that's just one problem that we have. Not just in this fan base either. I mean, that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's magnified here just due to his personality. He's literally everywhere, both in the Pittsburgh market, but he's also kind of the face of the Steelers nationally. He's the guy that gets marketed the most. I don't know. I mean, I just don't care about it, to be honest. Like, for better or worse, what he does on the football field, and he's an infectious guy. He's a likable guy. He can do whatever he wants, and it's, to me, whatever he does on the football field doesn't. I don't link those two things together.
Yeah, and we've said it multiple times that he is not Antonio Brown. People that want to compare the two, they are far different people. And I think we've seen that in different circumstances. But he is not going to be the same type of guy that Antonio Brown was off the field. So I feel like a lot of people can stop worrying about that, or at least they should, because he's not AB Jr. And I'm really sick of seeing that, because I just don't see how they can look at this guy and see what he does. I mean, even stuff he does off the field. Did you see the video of the guy that he bought? He bought the guy before the game, a homeless man. He bought him some food. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that AB was always a terrible person, but I've never seen a video of him doing that. I'll be honest.
Like I said, I think that the comparisons start and stop with them having big personalities. Yeah. But they're completely different big personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else to talk about with the Steelers? Oh, of course, the injuries. We can kind of touch on those a little bit. The big ones, obviously, starting right tackle Zach Banner having a torn ACL, being done for the year. That one, it hurts, not just from a football level, but also on a personal level. I mean, this guy was kind of thrown away by the Browns after being a 4th-round pick. He was overweight pretty much like his entire football career. Gets in the best shape of his life after being just kind of like he was known in Pittsburgh before this season, the eligible receiver last year, and just a big personality, again, getting back to that, and just a great presence on social media. Just Pittsburgh community fell in love with him, and he fell in love with them, and just a great story. And then he turned that into being a legitimate, he went out there and won the job. They didn't just hand it to him, starting right tackle in this league. And to see him go down in game 1 of his first start, it sucks at every level.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, it's just hard to watch because, I mean, as fans, a fan base, we've grown close with this guy. So we saw him in the offseason working his tail off. He, like you mentioned, he lost all that weight and won the job. It's just, it's so sad. I mean, there's no really other word I can think of besides sad that in his first game as a starting right tackle, he tears his ACL. It's such a disappointment for him and for the fan base. I mean, just because we were looking forward to him being our tackle. We were looking forward to him after putting in that work. And I mean, I'm sure that he will come back stronger than ever. And we hope for a speedy recovery, but it just sucks to see after that first game.
Yeah, and I mean, I have confidence in Chooks to step in. I mean, that battle literally came down to pretty much kickoff before Tomlin named a starter. I mean, he listed them originally going into the week as or, so it could have been either one going into the week. And I have confidence that Chooks can do it. I mean, he started a couple games at right tackle for the team in the past, but it's not about that. You know, again, Zach earned that spot, and it was just ripped away from him in less than 4 quarters of a season. And it just absolutely sucks. We could see the way that he was, you know, emotional about it, and rightfully so, and the way his teammates were towards him and how everybody reacted. I mean, it's just kind of like a punch in the gut. And yeah, I'm sure, you know, he's going to work his tail off to come back stronger next year. And hopefully he does and is able to reclaim that spot and provide a boost to the offensive line again next year. But yeah, I mean, it's a big loss for this season, and there's no other way around it. You know, even if Chooks fills in admirably, you're not gonna, you know, that just tears into the depth, because it would have been nice to have both those guys.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm confident in Chooks. Like you said, the battle was close. It's not like Banner just blew away the job. So, yeah, I'm excited to see the line because we got to see our guy Kevin Dotson in there a little bit as well with Wisniewski getting out with a. Did we know for sure like what is wrong with his pec?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we know it's a pec injury, but if it's torn, and I would assume, you know, that's what Tuitt missed all of last year with,
Mm-hmm.
that ended his season. I don't know. I mean, what else? I mean, I know you can like strain your pec, but like I really don't hear of other injuries involving the pec other than torn. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of unfortunately going to say that I'm expecting that to be the case, but we haven't heard that yet. Again, when you talk about, you know, feeling like Chooks can step in and replace Banner, I would feel more than comfortable with Kevin Dotson going there. And they can rework it some other ways potentially. I think that that's probably what they would go with. Another option would be to potentially, you know, throw Filer at right tackle to replace Banner, and then use Dotson and potentially another guard. I think that it makes the most sense just to use Chooks there. You have Dotson play one of the guard spots, and hopefully, you know, I mean, DeCastro could be back anyway on Sunday, so we'll see. But
Yeah, and we saw Dotson for I think like 6 snaps or something like that. And I know it's a very small sample size, but when he was in the game, I was specifically watching him because I wanted to see how he performed. And in those 6 snaps, he looked good. So I mean, I said before last week, and we both said we would have liked to see him just thrown into the fire, like start him, see what he could do, and we could potentially see that this week. And I'm really excited for it because this is a guy who was he was a 4th round pick, All-American, wasn't invited to the combine, so you know he's got a chip on his shoulder to show a lot of people that he can play, and I think that will just amplify his game even more. He looked really good.
so yeah, I guess the two options would be, and I'll ask you, would you rather have them go with, you know, playing Dotson to fill in for Wisniewski, and then having Chooks at right tackle, or would you want them to put Filer back at right tackle and then Dotson at guard?
Is this assuming that Castro is healthy?
Yes.
I would probably say
Because if the Castro is healthy and you're putting Chooks at the right tackle, then obviously Dotson wouldn't be in the starting lineup because you have the Castro and Filer as your guards.
I would say at first keep Filer at guard and put Chooks at tackle and see how it goes. I mean, if Chooks really struggles, then you could slide Filer over and see how Dotson does at left guard or right guard or wherever you want to put him in DeCastro. But at first, I would say keep Chooks in there and keep Filer at left guard. because it really until Chuk shows a sign of struggle, I wouldn't affect that.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, that'd be pretty much what your offensive line was last year against the Rams anyway, because that's the game that Chooch played right tackle when they moved Filer inside,
Right.
try to neutralize Aaron Donald. So, yeah, I think I'd agree. Okay, so real quick, looking around the league, Washington and Jacksonville both start out their seasons 1-0, which no one was expecting. Washington beating Philadelphia, Jacksonville beating Indianapolis. Those are actually two teams on the Steelers schedule that we talked about as kind of, cupcakes. And granted, it's just one game, but that Washington defense looks legit. And Gardner Minshew is playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars to not draft Trevor Lawrence. So pretty impressive first weeks for those guys.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was very pissed because I put the Colts in 2 parlays and I had a single bet on the Colts to win by 7, and they end up losing. I was very annoyed, and I know a lot of people were because they lost a lot of people a lot of money. I was shocked. I'm going to be honest. I was just shocked at both of those games. I did not see either of those outcomes happening.
Which one more so?
I would say I was more shocked by Jacksonville beating the Colts just because I had the Colts winning their division. I thought they were going to be very solid of a team. Not that I thought Philip Rivers was going to be that good. I just thought he was going to be able to manage the offense more, and I thought they had a solid defense. But and I just thought Jacksonville was going to be terrible. I feel like we all did. Everybody was picking them to be the worst team in the league by far, and yeah, so I was definitely more shocked about that one, just because Washington, even though they are a bad team still, they've got some bright spots, I guess you could say. I'm not as high on the Eagles as I know a lot of people are probably, so that's probably why I was more shocked with Jacksonville.
I think I'm more shocked I think I'm with you in terms of being shocked about the Jags beating the Colts, but it's more so because I gave Washington a better chance to upset Philly because Philly had only 2 of their starting offensive linemen, and they had injuries with like 8 other starters as well, alongside of the offensive linemen they had out. So I think that, that's why I would have definitely, we're going to get to some betting here in a little bit as we're going to introduce that to the show. But I was definitely loving that. I think it was 6.5, Washington plus 6.5. And I was like, they're going to get after Wentz. That's a good defensive front against anybody. And going against an offensive line, which only had 2 starters, I felt like Washington was definitely going to be able to keep it close. Now, I wouldn't have, picked them to beat them like they did. But it surprised me less that with that outcome as opposed to Jacksonville beating Indianapolis for the same reasons as you. I mean, I think the Colts, and it's just 1 week, so I still think that the Colts are going to be a good team. They'll be in the thick of things. But, I thought that they would come out better than they did. And, yeah, I mean, I did not expect Minshew to only throw 1 incompletion.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, how about that? He only incompleted 1 pass. That's pretty nuts. And I mean, you're right, and I didn't really think about this before today. I saw it that Minshew is basically playing for them to not draft Trevor Lawrence because inevitably, if they get the number 1 pick, that's who they're going to draft. So he's trying to prove that he can be their quarterback.
Imagine if they still do get the number 1 pick though, but they're sold on Gardner Minshew. Could you imagine what they could ask for from teams for the number 1?
That's true. I didn't even think that. That's very true. I mean, no matter how much.
My new pick to be the worst team in football is the New York Jets.
Really?
And if that comes true, are they sold on Sam Darnold?
Listen, whether it's Sam Darnold or Gardner Minshew, even though both they very well could be capable NFL quarterbacks, I just don't see how you don't draft Trevor Lawrence. Even if Gardner Minshew performs pretty well and they still get the number 1 pick. Okay.
It's Gardner Minshew and like 2 or 3 first round picks, or Trevor Lawrence, or Sam Darnold and 2 or 3 first round picks as opposed to Trevor Lawrence. So it's not just 1 for 1 straight up. You're talking about the other impacts that could have for your team. Like if you feel like if one of those guys is still a quarterback that you can win with, and I understand Trevor Lawrence is going to be, he's the cleanest QB prospect that's going to come into the league since Andrew Luck. I think that's a tough decision to make. Which one outweighs the other? Gardner Minshew and a couple first round picks from a team, or Trevor Lawrence?
Or we could not even be having this conversation in a month, and the Jacksonville Jaguars could look terrible the rest of the way, and Gardner Minshew could be bad. I mean, I don't think Gardner
That's the
Minshew's
tough thing.
I don't think
They're
Minshew's a
number one
terrible
overall.
quarterback.
What's that?
I don't think Minshew's a terrible quarterback.
No.
I just think with that team, if he performs poorly, it's really easy to just say, all right, we're drafting Lawrence.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I think he's a lot. I think he's a real NFL quarterback. I don't think he's just like a fun story. He's a fun guy to watch. He's kind of quirky. All this stuff about him.
He's not Duck.
Yeah, I just don't. I think he's much more than just a character. I think he is a legit NFL quarterback. And whether it be for the Jaguars or if they, move him because they draft Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to be successful in the NFL. It's just, again, you're talking about maybe the best prospect that a lot of these teams are going to see come into the draft since they've been in an NFL front office, and it's going to be hard to pass up. But when a team calls you and you feel like you have a stable NFL quarterback in a Gardner Minshew, and they say, hey, you got the number one, we're going to give you 3 years worth of first round picks. And what if that team's picking? What if that team's bad too, though? What if it's a team that's just a couple picks below you?
And then they stay bad?
Yeah, and you're thinking this team's probably going to stay in the top 5, top 10 for the next 3 years.
What teams would realistically do that? Say the scenario plays out. What teams do you think that could be bad that would want to trade for Trevor Lawrence? That would need a quarterback.
I mean, looking around the league now, how many teams are kind of trying to figure out what's going on with the Browns are trying to figure out what's going on with Baker Mayfield.
That's true. I mean, I guess Sam Darnold is a question mark in New York.
Sam Darnold's the same, kind of thing with Baker Mayfield. You got to decide this year if you're picking up the 5th-year option. So, yeah. Which I expect both of those would be done. I mean, you're talking about guys you took in the top 3. So, but other teams that kind of have to figure out their quarterback situation, whether it be like right now or for the future. I mean, what is the plans for the Colts, going forward after Phillip Rivers? Because he's getting up there.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the plans for the Pittsburgh Steelers after Ben Roethlisberger?
Do we want to trade 3 first-round picks?
No, I'm just saying. What's the plan for what if Cam Newton gets hurt for the Patriots?
Don't talk about that. Don't even speak that into
What are the Bears doing?
I don't know, because they're.
I mean, if it's the fourth quarter, Mitch.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Their fourth quarter, Mitch Trubisky, is a lot different than the first 3 quarters.
The Saints, past Drew Brees. Is it going to be Jameis? Is it going to be Taysom Hill?
My guy.
Carolina, after Teddy.
I don't know. That's a lot of question marks.
I mean, I would say, like, Jared Goff has questions to answer. Jimmy Garoppolo has questions to answer, but those guys are so highly paid and it's relatively new contracts.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
And they were also the last 2 teams that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl. So
is Washington sold on Dwayne Haskins?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you're talking about it's not the same front office that drafted him. And they were even split on when they drafted him to take him anyway, the old regime.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ron Rivera could have gone in there and drafted a quarterback this year instead of Chase Young. He could have taken Tua if he wanted instead of Chase Young. And they obviously didn't. And they gave Dwayne Haskins the job, and we'll see how it goes this year. But, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing that attaches him to them. That wasn't the same front office that drafted him. So,
since we're talking about college football and Trevor Lawrence, do you think there's any scenario or any chance that we could see what happened last year where Joe Burrow passed Tua? Do you think there's any chance any quarterback in the country could pass Trevor?
I mean, no, because I don't know who would beat one. I mean, I know we're getting Big Ten football back, so Justin Fields is going to come back, and that's, QB2 on a lot of people's boards. And then you talk about like Trey Lance, who's only going to play 1 game this season. It's like a 1-game showcase, if you will. I don't see another guy on the board other than, for me, one of those 2 wouldn't have anyway, but those are the next 2 guys, at least on my board right now. So I don't see that happening.
All right. I agree with you. I just was curious what you think, because I said Trevor Lawrence could have sat out this year, like opted out, like some of these players have been doing, and he still would have been the number 1 overall pick. I don't think anybody would have passed him.
Yeah, that would have sucked though if he would have sat, because that whole Clemson team, like pretty much all of those guys that could come back, minus like Isaiah Simmons, like Travis Etienne coming back just because they were so upset about losing that championship game. They
Yeah.
like wanted revenge for doing so. So if Lawrence would have ended up sitting out, I mean, that would have just Etienne would have
Imagine-
probably been like,
Imagine they lose again, and Lawrence is like, you know what? I'm going back for my senior year. It just screws up
I mean, what if he
everything.
looks at it like this is kind of like a lost college season, and he does.
It's true. I mean, we did see a report this weekend that he plans that this will be his last season, but opinions change, things change.
Yeah. Okay. So let's we kind of talked about briefly our week 2 opponent in the Denver Broncos. Week 1, they lose in the second game of the doubleheader against the Monday night doubleheader against the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if you watched that game at all. It was the pretty late.
I watched the entire game.
Okay. I watched about 3/4 of it. Pretty boring game in my opinion. But I can understand why people, obviously, if you have fantasy implications, if you were betting on the game, why you would stay up. If you want to watch missed field goals, it was obviously intriguing. But yeah, I looked at the Denver Broncos, and obviously they have a lot of missing pieces. They did in this game. They might get Cortland Sutton back. I'm not sure. We know they're going to be without Philip Lindsay. We know they're going to be without AJ Boye. Obviously, they're without Von Miller right now. It's a relatively depleted Broncos team. These are pretty big injuries. Although it's just a couple injuries, they're some of their best players on that football team. So I'm not taking them lightly by any means. I never take any opponent lightly. I think that we've seen what happens when you do that as Steeler fans in the past. But I think that this is another, matchup where we could see our defense kind of dominate the line of scrimmage. And I think that you'll see that in most games that we play this year. And, kind of let our offense kind of get into the groove of things, maybe even if they start out slow. But I looked at that defense, especially without AJ Boye, and think that Big Ben and the weapons are going to be able to have their way. And I look for the Steelers to win this game. And I'll go as far as saying they're going to cover the spread.
Yeah. So if Boye would have been playing, would he have moved into the slot with Juju, or do you think he would have stayed on the outside?
Hmm.
I just wanted to see what you would think, because obviously if you're going to be guarding the number one receiver on the team, you'd think you would just move with Juju.
They not drafted. They signed Bryce Callahan, who's pretty much a strictly slot corner. He's one of the better ones in the league.
Gotcha.
So,
well, I'm with you. I think the defense is going to swallow their running game up. Like I think you said last night on the fantasy show, do not play Melvin Gordon if you don't have to, which I'm not going to. I have him in one of my leagues. But I agree with you. I think the offense is going to be able to open things up a little bit in this game. And, I mean, since we're going to be talking about betting later, I'm going to be picking Pittsburgh with the spread. I'll be honest.
Yeah, so they're -7.5. And like you said, that was kind of the next thing anyway. So just to kind of wrap up the talk for Steelers Broncos, I will say I am intrigued long term about the Broncos offense. I don't think that this is a good spot for them, against the Steelers defense. It's a young offense.
Yeah.
I think they still have a lot of learning to do. I want to know, I'm curious to see us match up with Jerry Jeudy. I think that him versus like Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton, that is going to be a very fun matchup to watch. If Cortland Sutton comes back, him going against either Steven Nelson or Joe Hayden. I think KJ Hamler's going to miss a few more weeks anyway. But that receiving core is pretty talented. Noah Fant, who's going to be in charge of covering him. Devin Bush, we hope, can take a leap this year in terms of covering tight ends and running backs. Vince Williams has done a better job of that. Obviously, the safety's over top. It's going to be a fun matchup, I think. I just think that the Steelers have way too much talent on defense and on offense. Ben's got the weapons. It all comes down to Ben's arm again, but we think that he got right in week 1 and has started to shake off that rust, and I look forward to that continuing.
Also, just a little ad. You mentioned Devin Bush. He played all 68 defensive snaps, which is a good thing to see. He can be a 3-down back.
Absolutely. Okay, so new to the Around the 412. As we are part of Crowworthy, check them out. I believe that their Steelers Giants betting guide would have won you a lot of money. I think everything that they put in there hit. So if you followed that betting guide, you won some money. So keep up to date with that stuff. But being that they are so in tune with the betting game, we've decided to add that element to the show, as we are both people that place a lot of bets during football season anyways, both college and the NFL. So we are going to go through, and I know that did you end up throwing some college games on there? Or?
I've got a couple to look at. So you want me to just name a few I'm looking at?
Yeah, go ahead, because I don't have any college ones that I think are like locks for me as of right now.
So one that I don't think any of these are locks by any mean.
Oh,
but
okay, all right.
Things that I'm intrigued by are I would pick Syracuse plus 21.5 against Pitt.
Oh,
And the only reason is because I'm a Pitt fan, so I don't trust them. I don't I don't trust them to win by over 3 touchdowns. And Syracuse has always been a good matchup for Pitt, so I would pick the Orange to cover the 21.5 points.
wasn't Syracuse like not that bad just even like last season? What happened that they're like this?
They lost to Maryland. They got blown out by like 40 or 50, and then that just kind of sent them down a spiral.
Okay.
Anthony McFarland scored like a couple touchdowns on him last year, and then
Well, he ran for like almost 300 against Ohio State too. So
yeah.
what's that say?
Let me see some other games. I'm gonna say take the. Oh man, I don't know what I want to do. Take the under on Marshall and Appalachian State.
App State. I took the under on them in Charlotte this past week.
Yeah, I took App State 15.5, and they won by 15. You hate to see it.
Yeah.
Then there's some of these games that like, oh, I don't want to bet on Clemson the rest of the year. Screw Clemson. They screwed everyone. How do you not? I'm so ticked.
Wake.
Okay. Let's see. I'll say pick Wake Forest and NC State over 52.5.
Okay.
I feel like those.
But you're not incredibly confident on any of those.
No, I'm not. I mean, in this, granted, these are just like first glances. Like, and there's a lot of spreads and stuff that I don't really like. Like, I know North Carolina's a good team, but minus 30 against Charlotte, I'm not so confident about that. I know Charlotte's not that great, but I feel like defensively they could keep it within 30
They
points.
got Sam Highsmith in their corner.
Exactly. I think they could keep it within 30 points.
I did ask him. I wonder what he does for that, because he's a UNC guy, but then Alex went to Charlotte, so he became a Charlotte guy.
Oh, that's true. That's true. We'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Houston and Baylor over 62. It's a Big 12 game.
Yeah, I like that. I might throw that into my NFL parlay. Just that one game. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through every single NFL game, and we are going to tell you if you should go with a spread, money line, or the over-under, and then I got this hammer if I'm feeling that confident about what I'm saying, or if Tyler feels that confident about what he's saying.
I have a soccer wrench.
We look at tomorrow night's game, Cincinnati, Cleveland. They're giving Cleveland 6.5, minus 290 money line, and the over-under set at 43.5. What do you, if you're betting on this game, if you have to pick one of those, what are you taking?
I am taking under 43.5.
Okay. I'm with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of injuries in this game, playing on a short week. Thursday Night Football kind of always stinks. So I'm with you. I'm taking the under, and I'm hammering that.
Right. I just don't. I mean, Cleveland was the only team in week 1 to put up single-digit points, I believe. And I don't see their offense getting a ton better. I mean, I know it's hard to
Jarvis
get worse
Landry,
than that.
questionable.
Yeah. So, and they've got some injuries on their defense. The Bengals are what they are.
Tackles.
Yeah. So take the under in this game, and it's a Thursday night game, so I feel like the under more often than not hits on Thursday night games. Like I do not like playing a fantasy player if they play in a Thursday night game. So yeah, hammer the
Unless
under.
it's Derrick Henry against the Jags.
That's true. Take that every time.
Okay, next game we got Atlanta and Dallas. They're giving Dallas 4.5. Atlanta plus 176 money line, Dallas minus 210 money line, and the over under is set at 53.
All right.
Oh, I should also mention you might see some different lines, different spreads. This is FanDuel Sportsbook that we're looking at.
Yeah. So this one's a little tougher for me because I think the total intrigues me because it's like you said on the fantasy show last night. I think it will be a shootout. especially after seeing what I saw from Dallas against LA. I was not impressed with their defense whatsoever. But I don't know. I think with the game being in Dallas, not that it even matters, with the no fans, I'd be intrigued to take the 4.5 points, but I'm leaning towards the over 52.5. I feel like this could be like a 20 or like a 31-27 game, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I said I expect a shootout, and I do, but I feel comfortable either going Dallas minus 4.5 or the over. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of torn which one I would do. I think though, if I'm looking at and they're both, minus 105 going either of those routes. So there's not a whole lot of, reason for me to pick one over the other.
Right.
I think, and neither
No,
one is going to be a hammer, obviously.
yeah, this is not going to be hammer if we have
Deciding
to
about
decide
this.
like that. Yeah.
I'm going to go minus 4.5 Dallas.
I'm leaning that way too, because overs to me in the NFL, especially when they're set in the 50s, are always it's kind of scary a little bit, just because I don't know what NFL teams are going to do week to week. But I do feel like Dallas will win by 4.5 points, if not a touchdown. So yeah, take the 4.5.
Buffalo and Miami. They are giving Buffalo 6 points here. They are minus 240 on the money line, whereas Miami is plus 198, and the over-under set at 41 points.
All right, I don't know if you're gonna be a little different than me here. I am hammering that 6 points for Buffalo, and the reason is I think that Buffalo is better than the Patriots are, and the Patriots won by what, 11 points or a little more than that.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I am taking the points with Buffalo, and I am saying that their defense is good enough to keep Miami from scoring. And I think their offense is improved enough this year that they will win by those 6 points.
The Pats won by 10, 21-11 in the game.
All right. Well, I think the Bills are a little better than Pats, at least right now. So I'm picking the Bills minus 6.
Yeah, I do think I kind of like Miami's defense. What the thing for me is no Devontae Parker potentially. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. And because of that is why I would take the under on the points at 41, is because I don't think Miami's going to put up any points. I think their defense is decent enough to hold Buffalo to like 20. I think that they'll probably be around, like I could see like a 20-17 game here with Buffalo winning. That's 37 points. It's under 41. I would take the under, but I'm not hammering that by any means.
Maybe I'm being a little more optimistic because Josh Allen is my fantasy quarterback in both leagues, but maybe there's a little bias there.
I brought up on the fantasy show, he's kind of right around that QB 5-7 range for me. I think this is a decent matchup for him, but it's more so about what he adds with his legs. I don't know that necessarily like translates on the scoreboard all that much. Miami's defense is definitely much improved, going out and getting Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy. I do like them quite a bit more than I did last year. I think that they can stay in some ball games, and I think that's why I would feel more comfortable going the under here on the points. I don't like the money line. Minus 240 for Buffalo is just too much. I do think they win this game, though. I just think it's relatively low scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Next one would be Carolina and Tampa Bay. We're starting to get into these larger spreads here. They're giving Tampa 9.5 points. They're minus 9.5. Minus 390 on the money line, where Carolina is plus 310, and the points set at over under 47.5.
All right. I
hate this one.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But even though I don't like it, I'm going to take Carolina plus 9.5.
Okay.
I think with their offense, I think they can keep up enough to keep it within 10 points. I don't think they'll win the game, but based off of what I saw from the offense against, and it's kind of like throwing the new Buccaneers into the fire with them playing the Saints for week 1. But based off what I saw in that game, I think that Carolina, especially with McCaffrey, has the capabilities to keep themselves within 9.5 points.
Yeah, I mean the money line on this game stinks. It's not even worth it to me.
Yeah, not
Minus
even worth
three
touching.
ninety. Unless for some reason you think Carolina's going to win, then obviously getting that plus 310 for them would be a great value. So I think Tampa Bay is going to win this game. I think it will be. Yeah, there's still so many moving pieces with that offense. I think they get into a little bit better rhythm. I'm more concerned with their defense containing Christian McCaffrey. And for that reason, I think Carolina can actually put some points on the board. I'm going to go with the over points on this of 47.5.
See, that was the other one I was looking at. I wasn't going to touch the money line, and I was looking at the over 47.5. But
I think Carolina's
I don't know.
defense stinks.
Yeah.
So I think Tampa Bay will put up some points. And I think that we could see Christian McCaffrey get in the end zone a couple times. If not him, maybe DJ Moore has a better game. We saw Robbie Anderson break a 75-yard touchdown. I think there is some talent on that Carolina offense. It's more about, can Teddy Bridgewater get them the ball and get the most out of them? I would look for this game, potentially to be like, I don't know, a 27 to 20 game or something like that, which would have, Carolina covering yours as well. I mean, actually, that would come in at the under.
I would say that would be the under.
That'd be the under, but okay. So I'll go 30 to 20.
Gotcha.
So now yours isn't getting covered, but mine has.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like that matchup that much.
It stinks. I hate 9.5. 9.5 is way too high for me to even like.
Which is why I'm picking plus 9.5. I feel like it's too high.
Okay. Moving along to our matchup here. Steelers and Broncos, they're giving Steelers minus 7.5, minus 335 on the money line with Denver plus 270, over under set at 41.5.
I'm not in love with the total. I don't know what to do with it because I feel like our defense can hold them enough where the under is
like
an easy
10,
pick.
And there's no way.
Yeah.
I don't think our offense can just score over 30. Yeah.
But at the same time, our offense could, which I don't know. Based off of watching both games Monday night, I'm going to pick the under, but I don't love it.
I kind of alluded to my pick already. I'm going to take us to cover, and I'm actually going to pull out the old hammer for this one and say I'm hammering that one. I think minus 7.5. I think that we win by 10. So,
yeah, I like us to cover. I like that pick. I don't think Denver's offense is really going to do much in this game.
The Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers matching up here. Green Bay minus 6. The money line minus 270 for Green Bay, plus 220 for the Detroit Lions. Over under at 49.5 points.
All right, here's one of my hammers. You hammer those 6 points for Green Bay because they're going to win by like 2 touchdowns.
Wow. Okay. I mean, yeah, Detroit looked really good for 3 quarters against Chicago, and then that fourth quarter happened, but Green Bay looked very good for 4 quarters against Minnesota, who is, you think, a much better team than the Detroit Lions. Yeah, the value obviously not there on the money line, unless you want to pick Detroit to upset Green Bay straight up.
Just don't see that happening.
And the points for me, I mean, you'd have to be over under 49.5. You'd have to be expecting Green Bay to get 30 plus of that, probably. I think I'd take Green Bay to cover minus 6.
I feel like watching them play Minnesota, it's an easy pick for me. You're going against a lesser talented Detroit Lions team. You're at home. Yeah, it's an easy pick for me. Packers minus 6.
Okay. Jaguars Titans. They are giving the Titans 8.5 points, minus 390 on the money line, as opposed to plus 310 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The over under here set at 42.5 points.
This is another game where I'm like, yuck. I hate this. I do not like what was it, minus 9?
8.5.
8.5. I'm not a huge fan of that just because I saw what they did to the Colts. So I'm gonna say under 43 is my pick because I feel like Tennessee is going to run the ball, which will make the clock move faster. and I feel like their defense is good enough to hold Jacksonville. So yeah, under 43 is my pick. I don't really like any of the matchups in this one.
I think Jacksonville covers 8.5.
Really?
I think just based off what I saw, their matchup against the Colts and watching Tennessee play that game against Denver, I don't know the way that Tennessee plays. Obviously, Derrick Henry runs all over them every time that they play each other. But I think we're talking more than a touchdown difference here.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee wins this game. I think it's just by a touchdown though. So I think that Jacksonville covers the 8.5.
Exciting stuff.
Rams.
Imagine if Jacksonville started 2-0 though against those two teams.
That's the thing, man. Like I'm tempted, honestly, to go to put some money on them plus 310.
I mean, just put like $5 on them, $10 on them.
I know this game's in Tennessee. There's no fans though until Tennessee's second home game. So
exactly. I don't know.
The Rams and Eagles. The Rams are the favorite here, -1.5. But the interesting thing here, both -108 on the money line. And then the over-under is set at 47.
Okay. This is a tough one for me because I don't think the Eagles are as bad as they showed.
We'll see if they get some help back. If Lane Johnson comes back, if Miles Sanders can come back, some of those guys return. They're a much better football team than we saw.
Dallas Goedert.
What?
I said Dallas Goedert might have an increased role, like you said last night.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think the Eagles are as bad as they showed against Washington, but I don't think the Rams are as good as they showed against the Cowboys. So, I think that's where it's still like even. But what did you say the spread was?
It's just 1.5. Rams -1.5.
Ugh. I'm gonna pick under 46.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see a lot of scoring in this game. Like I think it could be like a 20-17 game, 21-17, something like that. So yeah.
I think that it will be the under, but I also there's more value in me doing that. Okay, it's plus 100 to take the Rams -1.5, which is why I would do that, because I think the Rams win this game and I think it's by about a field goal, and there's more value in doing that as opposed to going the under 47 at -130 odds. So I'm going -1.5 here for the Rams. I think that the Eagles are still too banged up. I think that the Rams did enough against Dallas to show me that they're a much better team in 2020 as opposed to the 2019 version of the Rams. Yeah. I still don't think that they're going to compete, against the 49ers or Seattle when it's all said and done. I mean, even the Cardinals might be a lot better. The Rams might be the last place team in that division. I don't know. The NFC West
that's the best division in football by far.
Top to bottom, I agree.
Yeah.
But I think that the Rams here, Philadelphia is still too banged up. I like them to cover the -1.5, and at plus 100, that's pretty good value in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean at -1.5, you're basically winning. You're basically picking who's winning this game.
Yeah,
you're not really picking a spread. So, yeah, I like your pick.
Minnesota and the Colts, two teams coming off of losses. They are giving the Colts 3 points here. The money line -176 as opposed to the Vikings plus 148. The over-under is set at 48.5.
This is another one where I don't trust the Colts, so I'm picking the Vikings plus 3.
I'm picking the Vikings money line at plus 148. I'm taking the Vikings to straight up win this game.
That's better value. Yeah, then I'll pick
it's plus 148 money line. It's plus 100 taking the plus 3.
All right, then I'm picking money line as well. I think the Vikings will win this game. I was tempted to say the over, but I'm not sure how much the Colts are scoring.
Yeah, I mean, the loss of Marlon Mack, obviously they still have Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines there. I still feel like Phillip Rivers needs more time to get comfortable with that offense. Mm-hmm. Him and T.Y. Hilton really didn't do much. Paris Campbell was kind of like the leading receiver for that team, which is why Paris Campbell was one of my waiver wire pickups. but I think it'll be interesting to see. I can't. I mean, it's hard to imagine the Colts starting out 0-2, but the Vikings even more so, for me at least.
Yeah, I think so too. So I agree.
I think that the
We're both
Colts
taking money line.
the Colts have a better chance to make up ground if they start 0-2 in the division than the Vikings do, in my opinion, because of the Packers being in that with them. I think if you
Yeah.
look at the AFC South, you're going to see the winner of that conference, winner of that division, probably be like a 9-7 team. Where the Vikings, they can't lose too much ground because I think the winner, whether it be the Vikings or the Packers, is going to have to win 11 games.
Yeah, especially after seeing the way the Packers performed against the Vikings.
So this game, probably the least intriguing for me in terms of the matchup. Giants and Bears here. The Bears minus 5.5 point favorites. They're minus 250 on the money line with the Giants plus 205. Over under set at 42.
I might be taking a risk here. I'm taking the spread for the Bears.
You're taking the cover 5.5 against the Giants?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to say when you said taking a risk, you're picking the Giants here.
No, I think I think either way it's a risk because you saw the fourth quarter for the Bears, but you also saw the first three quarters. I don't really trust them, and I don't trust the Giants either. But I'm picking the Bears to cover the 5.5 points. I think they'll win by a touchdown.
I'm just taking the under 42 here. I think that they're not nearly I don't think that they're as good as the Steelers defense, but I think the Bears defense is pretty good too. And I think that the Giants offensive line will struggle with them. I think Danny Dimes is going to have to make some plays like he did against the Steelers to keep them in this game. And I could see the Bears covering it as well, but I'm more inclined to take the under, thinking that neither offense will be able to put up that many points. I could see this being, a 20-17 game.
I think yours is definitely the safer pick.
Yeah. Okay, so Niners and Jets. They're giving the Niners 7 points here, -7, -290 on the money line. The Jets are +235. Over under points 42.5.
Are you hammering the spread or are you hammering the under?
I'm hammering the Niners to cover -7.
All right, that's what I was thinking too.
The Jets are my new pick to be the worst team in football this year. Adam Gase sucks. No Le'Veon Bell this week, which he hasn't been a huge factor for them anyway. The Niners are coming off a loss. Not sure that they're going to have George Kittle at full strength, but really, them coming off a loss, they're going to be pissed off. They know they got to win a game to keep up with the rest of that division. They're the only team that lost week 1 in that division. I like them to beat up on the Jets this week.
I agree with you. Yeah, I was deciding between that and the under, and I'm going to pick the -7. But I think the under, if you want to bet on that as well, it could hit. Yeah, it's very good value. I mean, the Jets are not going to score, and the Niners have a good defense. And I just don't think the Niners, even though I think they could blow them out, I don't see them putting up like 40 or even high 30s, just because I feel like the Giants are more, they're more of a conservative offense, even though they can put up points.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this being the under as well. I think that, the Jets if the Jets score 10 points in this game, the Niners would have to score 33 for that to hit the over.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like at plus 100 for the Niners to cover 7 points. I like that value. So that's where I'm going, as opposed to betting the under at -115. So we got the Washington football team against the Arizona Cardinals. They're giving the Arizona Cardinals -6.5 with -300 on the money line, as opposed to +245 for Washington. The over/under set at 47.5.
I'm taking under 47.5 points. I saw Washington's defense. I think they can win by 6.5 points. But I feel more comfortable taking the under.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's more so me thinking Washington's not going to put up points. I think Arizona will put up some points on Washington, even with Washington having the defense they do. I'm just that big of a believer in Arizona's offense. But, obviously the value isn't there to take Arizona on the money line, and I don't think Washington wins this game. And at 6.5, if we expect Washington's defense to somewhat keep them in this football game, it just makes more sense to go the under, thinking, Arizona is going to score 24 or something like that, and Washington's going to score 14, somewhere around that range. That would have you at the under. So
right,
I like taking the under there. Baltimore and Houston, they're giving Baltimore -7. Minus 320 on the money line. Houston plus 260. Over under set at 52.
I'm taking over 52.
Okay.
I think this game is going to be pretty high scoring. I like both. I love both quarterbacks, actually. Not even like, I love both quarterbacks. And I think it's going to be a very offensive game. I think you're going to be looking at a final score of like 30-27 or something like that. Like it's going to be relatively close, I think. But I do think Baltimore ends up winning.
This is a tough one for me because Deshaun Watson, he's hard to bet against. You know, he's going to pull some wins out of nowhere this year against teams that are more well-rounded than the Texans. And I don't think that it comes at the expense of Baltimore. I think Baltimore, top to bottom, is a much more complete team. I think the Texans' offensive line stinks, and they're able to get after Deshaun Watson a lot. I'm still not sold on the weapons they have there. Good first week for a guy like David Johnson to get out there, and he's never going to make that trade seem like a good one for the Texans, but a pretty valuable asset to them if he is healthy. Yeah, this one. Baltimore's defense for me is just too good. I'm going to take Baltimore to cover this -7.
Okay.
I could see why you would go over. It just concerns me that even with Deshaun Watson being the player he is, that he won't put up enough points for them to cover. I think Baltimore definitely puts up 30 on the Texans defense, but I'm not so sure that the Texans get 23 or so that it would take to cover that over. So I would take Baltimore -7, and that's at a +100. So I'm not hammering that by any means. But yeah, and I don't even know that I would bet on this, to be honest. But if I were,
I wouldn't. This is probably one I would stay away from.
Yeah.
But if I'm making a pick, yeah.
Kansas City and the LA Chargers. Kansas City -8.5, -400 on the money line. +315 for the Chargers, and the over/under set at 47.5.
I'm hammering my socket wrench. You hammer that spread if you're betting on them. They beat the Texans by 14. They're definitely going to beat the Chargers by 8.5 or whatever it was. You hammer the spread. That's one of my hammers.
I have the same thing here. There's no value to pick them straight up on the money line. Obviously, I don't give the Chargers any chance to win this game. Over/under set at 47.5. I do once again think that the Chiefs score over 30, but can the Chargers get to 18 points to hit that over? I would be more inclined to take the Chiefs -8.5 with the -110 odds. It's the same thing. It's -110 for the over/under as well. So.
Yeah, realistically, and unless the Chiefs are playing like a real team in quotations, so like if they played Baltimore or Pittsburgh or anybody with a real defense, I am probably picking them to cover their spreads.
Yeah, I agree. So Sunday Night Football, New England and Seattle, a rematch of a pretty infamous Super Bowl. They're giving the Seattle Seahawks -4 here. -205 on the money line, +172 for the Patriots. Over/under set at 44.5.
Yikes. I'm just gonna pick the Seahawks to cover.
Okay. Yeah, this is very tough for me. Because New England has a good defense. And Cam Newton, so far, so good week 1. Can he run the ball 15 times a game, though? He ran for 2 touchdowns, 15 rushing attempts. I think Seattle wins this game, and for that reason, even with not great value at -205, to be safe, I'm just going them on the money line. 4 points, I think that the value's there, but I could see this easily being like a game that comes down to a field goal at the end. I think New England's going to play them tough. These are always very good matchups when they do link up. New England has a good defense. It's going to keep them in games even when their offense isn't at full strength. Yeah, I'm going Seattle -205 on the money line, and I know that's kind of a cheap way around getting.
I think it's our first money line.
Is it?
Yeah, I think we've either picked total or spread. I don't think either.
Oh no, I picked Minnesota money line against the Colts.
Oh right.
The underdog. Yeah.
Right.
And last but not least, Monday Night Football, the Saints and Raiders. Saints -5.5, -230 on the money line. Vegas Raiders +190. Over under set at 49.5.
Listen, I love Josh Jacobs. He scored 3 touchdowns for both of my fantasy teams. I don't see him having that performance again this week, even though I love him. I'm picking the Saints to cover their 6 points, even without Michael Thomas.
That's the key, is no Michael Thomas for me.
You're forgetting they have Taysom Hill.
Yeah, they got Emmanuel Sanders, they got Alvin Kamara, they got Jared Cook. I mean, it's still a good offense.
I also like the defensive front against Josh Jacobs to be able to contain him because, I mean, realistically, after their run game, is there too much to like in their pass game, like outside of like Henry Ruggs?
No, I mean, I like Darren Waller quite a bit, and I think him and Carr have a connection. They brought in a couple of rookies. Well, you mentioned Henry Ruggs. They also drafted Brian Edwards, obviously Hunter Renfrow out of the slot. I mean, I'm looking at this, and I do think the Saints win, and I do think that they cover, but there's better odds picking the under 49.5, and I think that no Michael Thomas for the Saints, it changes that offense a little bit where I still think that the Saints win pretty handily, but I don't think it gets to the over 49.5 because of the loss of him, which is why I will take the under 49.5 on this game as opposed to going them to cover.
Cool.
It's it's just -115 as opposed to -110. So
gotcha.
Make a little bit more money by going the under on that. But
I'm not looking at the odds in front of me. I just see like the actual like totals and spreads.
Yeah. But anyway, is that one that you feel pretty confident in though? Or
yeah, I feel confident in it. Like if it's, what is it, 5.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll win by a touchdown, so I'm very confident in that one.
Are you breaking out this?
I'll break it out. Hammer it.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm there with the under, honestly. So if you're listening back to this, let us know if you locked in any of those. If you're watching, let us know what you thought. I think that about wraps it up, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you guys about Keeks Barbershop. It's an old-fashioned barbershop located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, that's Keeks Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Everybody that's watching, we can't thank you enough for watching. Please hit that subscribe and notification bell. If you're listening back, please go to the YouTube and do the same. But thank you for listening, of course, no matter what platform it was on. Thanks for being a part of this. Tweet at us. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know if you locked in any of these bets or how you felt about us doing this segment and introducing it. We're going to be doing it every week. So thanks for listening to Around the 412. This has been a presentation of Crowworthy. We're winners serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, of course, now, and more. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Around the 412. Follow Crowworthy. Visit the Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for blogs, podcasts like this one, betting advice, all that good stuff, and more. It's been Smitty. It's been Tyler. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.